welcome to the May 2nd, 2012 meeting of the Lake Forest Building Review Board. I am Peggy Vignocchi, Chairman of the Building Review Board. At this time, I ask members of the board to please introduce themselves.
Michael Bleck.
Steuart Trey.
Monica Ruggles.
Charlie King. John Clair.
And would our representatives from staff please introduce themselves?
Kathy Cerniak, and soon to join us, Megan O'Neill.
Thank you. The board is here tonight to work together with all of you, property owners, architects, neighbors, and interested citizens to continue the long tradition that allows Lake Forest residents and businesses to work together to preserve the qualities and the unique character that make Lake Forest a special community. We recognize the personal importance of each petitioner's request. Our goal is to respect the needs and desires of property owners while balancing the interests of the community as a whole to preserve and enhance its architectural character and landscaped streetscapes. For those of you who may not be familiar with the Building Review Board, the types of projects that come before this board are those in which the property owners are requesting a variance to allow a home that is larger than permitted by the code, are seeking a demolition permit and approval of a replacement structure, or otherwise involve issues that could not fully be resolved by city staff. It is important to note that over 95% of building permits are issued by the city without the need for any board review. Thus, the board typically deals with the most challenging and sometimes controversial projects. The City of Lake Forest is committed to conducting open and fair meetings. To achieve that goal, the board has adopted meeting procedures, and all parties will be provided an opportunity to speak. These procedures are outlined on the agendas available at the back of the room. This meeting is also broadcast on cable television. Speaking on behalf of the entire board and city staff, our objective is to provide a review process that is thorough, fair, and without unnecessary delay. The first order of business is the approval of the minutes of the April 4th, 2012 meeting. Do we have any comments regarding the minutes?
Yes, under the other items, you've got Historical Preservation Commission rather than the BRB.
Thank you, Steuart. Any other comments? Do I have approval for the minutes to amend the comment made by Steuart?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Abstain?
Abstain.
Thank you.
I wasn't.
Thank you.
Oh, I wasn't either. But I read them and they looked, I watched it on television, so it was consistent with what I saw.
The next item on the agenda is a continued petition, a request for approval of the demolition of Moore Hall, a 60-bed student residence hall, and approval of a new 235-bed student residence hall, both on South Campus at Lake Forest College, 555 North Sheridan Road. Board review of the architectural design and exterior materials is requested. Board consideration of a landscape plan for this project will occur later in the process. The owner is Lake Forest College. Representative is James Curtin, architect. Good evening.
Good evening. I appreciate being here, and thank you for your time and attention. On behalf of President Scott and the administration at Lake Forest, I'm happy to represent this project for the college. As a continuation from our last meeting, a lot of work has been done. I think from the report, you'll see that we've worked diligently to address the concerns that were raised and to produce what we believe is a great solution for the college and for the city. The slides that I have to present here, I'll go through quickly for time, but I wanted to show them all to you. This is still the existing site plan that shows the existing Moore Hall. And you can see once again Sheridan, Rosemary Sports Center for the college is on the south side. The majority of the college is moving to the north through Mid and North Campus. This diagram shows two footprints. The dashed line is the footprint that we showed prior, and it involved an angled building. And if we were to look at some of the significant changes that have been made since the last presentation, siding and the building footprint is truly one of the major changes. You'll see here that the prior plan angled and followed directly to the north. Yet in the revisions, we've looked at the geometry of the existing quads. We've noticed, we know that the existing Moore Hall came first prior to the quads and established the geometry that was represented by the quadrangle development. And by adhering to that geometry for the entire building, it does a number of wonderful aspects for the site itself. One is, you can see it's broken into really two buildings, two legs of a building that are joined in the middle. The lower leg actually is approximately exactly where Moore Hall is, and you'll see in the massing is approximately the height of existing Moore. The leg to the north staggers and follows the same geometry, but in essence those two buildings are quite similar in scale and size. Yet, I will show you in massing, we actually dropped the northern leg down to work with the existing topography. If we look at some of the side benefits associated with this, and actually a student helped to really bring this out to us, is that the red line indicates the quadrangle space, that interior space that's produced by the massing of the building footprints themselves. But by adhering to the same geometry as Nowlin in this location, we're also creating a forward or a front quad where the two buildings work well together. And we talked about a gateway type treatment in our last presentation, but with the buildings working off the same site geometry, it truly does establish a gateway. And when we were talking to students, they love that idea because they could have activity space as they approach the building, and then the interior quad could be for other activity space. If we look closer at the plan, we'll notice that all the setbacks really work quite well. We have adequate distance and separation around the perimeter of the building, and in fact, although the college has agreed to relocate the water main to the north, we're actually a little further south than what we showed you before. And so the setbacks are all well preserved, as is the recreation field to the east. I had mentioned about so that's one aspect, it's the siding. It's allowing the building to conform to the geometry and the orientation of the existing quads to make this all work as one unit. We also looked at it very quickly in 3-dimension, and we have further renderings later on. But this was our initial study. You can see the new building is here, Nowlin is here, Hickson, and then the other quad buildings. It all starts to work as a comprehensive unit. You'll also start to see that this is where we made a step in the building. The natural topography slopes, as you move to the north, slopes down toward Rosemary. And this is a cross-section of the building, and you can see the natural topography as noted in the dashed line. And so our thought was, if we can lower that one building to the north and actually nestle it into the landscape, we're actually doing two things. We're recalling actually what exists on the site in the quad buildings. Nowlin Hall right now does just that. There's 4 stories of windows expressed along Rosemary Road, or Rosemary, because it is at a lower elevation as you move toward the street, whereas on the interior to quad, it's 3-story. So we think that this is aligned with how the existing buildings are currently working on the site. If we look at the overall cross-sections, you can see a diagram. This would be in the east-west and in the north-south. Here you can see the new residence hall. This represents approximately more, the height of more, I think is different by 8 inches. Yet when we look at the section through Nowlin and the building beyond as it steps down, it actually is about 8 inches different than Moore Hall as well. So in very simple terms, the leg to the south is approximate to Moore Hall. The leg to the north is approximate to Nowlin Hall. So the building actually moves with the topography itself. So how do we achieve that? Very briefly, in the floor plans, you can see this is the lower leg that's actually on the north end. And so we have a cluster of rooms on that lower floor. When we go to the ground floor, the entrance is still an entry that's in line with Nowlin Hall's entry further to the west. So once again, these buildings are communicating with each other within the interior of the quad. We've gone ahead and placed some of the program amenities, such as a multi-purpose room and some seminar rooms, but then the rest is units themselves. On the typical floor, a comment was made in terms of the glazing that was on the social lounge that's on every floor. We've now moved it to the interior facing side of the building, so you can see it's located here. Now, along the exterior, along Sheridan, it's all residential units. You can also see that the building itself, it's trying to be balanced. It's really trying to be two buildings that have been clustered together that stagger off of each other. And then for the top floor, you can see we do get the additional beds by having an upper floor that's in line with the existing Moore Hall. The roof plan. Once again, there was a comment, and this was also a concern for the zoning review board, and that's the mechanical units. We are doing a detail similar to Nowlin, similar to other buildings on that south campus, where we have a pitched roof that produces a well that within that well we can put our air handling units. Therefore, screen them acoustically, also visually from the exterior. Another comment that was raised is concerning any light bleed coming from the building, and this detail is still occurring where we have recessed lights deep within the unit, yet if we have a light in terms of general illumination for the room, it would be mounted, that fixture would be mounted on the outside wall facing in, so that you don't have the distraction of any light bleed or light direct view of the light source from the exterior. Now I'd like to move, so we've mentioned now about siding was the one significant change. The second significant change was in the massing and allowing the building to step with the topography. Now we'd like to talk about the exterior. One side note here, you can see this is Nowlin's elevation, Nowlin Hall's elevation along Rosemary. So you can see how Nowlin Hall actually is working with the topography, just as we are. And you can also see the overall aesthetic of the South Campus is very strong. And we believe this building, if we work within the geometry that exists within the existing quads, the exterior design also has to complement and work with the quad buildings themselves. They're going to be here for a long time, and we want this building to be part of that overall South Campus character. And then some, just in terms of overall site context, here you can see the existing Moore Hall that we've discussed about demolition. And then the other house is the Rosemary House, which is across the street, but on the student path from mid-campus. I will quickly...
You may continue.
Okay, thank you. Another aspect that is different from the last time we presented was really looking at Sheridan Road. And so what we did is, before the leaves came out, we walked from the south of Sheridan Road up to the north and took photos of where that building would be located as you go up. For the most part, there's a strong hedge that's on the lower part along the recreation field. There is a point, and I think it's photo 7 or site 7, where you do see through, and Hickson is actually in the foreground of the building beyond. Regardless, these photos to us demonstrate with the over 250-foot setback off Sheridan Road, this building is really part of the clustering of buildings that compose the quad. The exterior design, this first view is actually taken from the interior quad. So you can see the fenestration that is the social lounge for the kids on each floor. And then you can see the balance of the building. We did take the stair tower that's on the end and actually took the pitch off, and so allowed that to be represented more as an end bookend to the building. And then we have at the pivot point, we do have, and you'll be able to see all this in the model and in the renderings, but there is a pivot point where the building shifts. And that's also represented by the elevator overrun. The ends of the building combine both fenestration for the stair exit itself, but also window for the end of the corridor. That's incorporating two kinds of bricks. Maybe I can just show you the materials now. This represents the. This one.
Yep.
You can see to the right, that's the asphaltic shingles that are actually a standard on the campus today. We're looking at a warm metal for the windows themselves, and use of warmer metal. We think it just produces a richer building. The glass is a clear glass, but it's BE1. It has a low E coating, so that from an energy code standpoint, but we don't like the idea of tinted glass. It's not, actually in our opinion, it's not residential, and we want this building to really look residential. You can see we have stone trim in the building, and that's represented here with the lighter color. The bricks that we're showing here, we've gone through a number of iterations, and this is the exterior coloration of the building, and it's a significant element. But we reviewed this with the college as well. You'll see that the bricks actually do not contrast nearly as much as the ones we showed you before. They're actually in the same color family and the same with a slightly different hue. Yet the lighter color is to complement the existing quad buildings. The quad buildings, that color is a little bit more orange. This one has a little bit more rose color. It actually is the darker of the two bricks we used in doing Nolin for their addition to match the existing brick. So it's kind of a nice twist on that. And this darker brick is a rich earth tone. It doesn't have a tremendous red cast, but it's got almost a dark terracotta cast. So the combination of those two, I think, gives this building a very rich character. It's not a heavy contrast, but it's contrast enough to give some variation on the facade. Here is the elevation along Sheridan Road, so it's very similar, but you can see how the building steps and how it works with the existing topography. A blow-up detail starts to show some of the character. You can see that we're using that darker brick really as the field brick. So we do contrast in relation to Nolin. We're using a darker brick as a field brick. The accent brick is actually the infill at the windows, and we're allowing for some pattern. We also don't send the brick all the way up to the eave, all the way across the building. You'll see that the lighter brick is actually introduced to give some articulation up at the eave line, the top level of the windows themselves. And you can see through the dotted area, we do allow the natural topography to work. We do sculpt out the topography so we can gain light and vent for those windows. But what, in essence, we did is very similar to Nolin. We brought the grade up to the sill of the window. I will move super fast now. Oops, that was too fast. So those are the samples that I've shown you. We put it in the package for your reference. And then the last drawings focus on an aerial view, so this gives you a better sense. Nolin Hall is off to the right. Hicksonhoff is to the left, Sheridan Road. You can see the recreation fields right here. And then this is the view. This is actually our student entry gateway coming into the interior quad. The survey we've talked about before, and we've talked about some of the features such as the rain garden. I won't get into that in too much detail. Other than the overall vision for the rain garden is very similar to the landscape that exists or has been developed to the by the sports center. That it has varied plants that are designed to work within a wetter environment at times. And that's a cross-section through that rain garden. Thank you.
Great, thank
And
you.
thank you for your patience.
Thank you. At this time, we will have staff present their report.
Thank you, Chairman Vignocchi. This project is really significantly different in form and siting than you saw at your last meeting. I think many of the comments that the college project team heard from the Building Review Board as well as the Zoning Board of Appeals were taken into account. One key aspect is that they took the input to really explore whether the single building mass could really be created in a way that it appeared as two distinct building masses. And the ability to do that and to allow the northernmost section to step down really does change the view of this building from what you originally saw. The way this building is sited, the breaking of the massing really creates a situation where from anywhere along Sheridan Road, which curves around South Campus at that point, you don't get a full-on view of the building. And I think that's a very strong element of this plan. The zoning board did see this project last week, I believe, maybe the week before, and they really look more at the overall site. They did recommend approval of a special use permit. They felt very strongly that the changes to the building mass, although they don't look at the details that you do, really did address their concerns and mitigate impacts on the surrounding area. One aspect that occurred after your last board meeting is that in talking with the college, they were agreeable to relocating a city water main, which right now cuts through the field. And although in the end, it gave more flexibility to explore more options, and in the end, the building was actually pulled a little bit to the south. But what the city gets out of that is, because the college has agreed to relocate that water main at their cost, the city is able to replace quite an old water main and locate it along Rosemary Road, which really is where we would prefer to have those types of structures located rather than across a field. So it will help us in the future to have that off of the campus. What is in front of you tonight is a request for demolition of Moore Hall and a request for approval of the new building. A landscape plan is not in front of you at this time, and with a project of this scope, it really has worked well in the past to allow the project to begin to take shape and come out of the ground before we actually look at the details of the landscaping. The Zoning Board of Appeals did look at the rain garden and the theme of landscaping in that area and really talked about making sure that that area is enhanced as an entrance to South Campus. Staff is recommending approval of the project at this point. We do recommend that you continue appointment of a subcommittee. I think this is a large enough project that we'd like to have that in place as the working drawings are developed to refine architectural elements, to look at refinements to the exterior details. And I would also note that there was a board subcommittee who met twice with the project team, board member Ruggles and board member Bleck, and they may have some additional comments to offer at the outset. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you, Kathy. At this time, we will take it to the board for questions to the staff or the petitioner. I'd like to start with asking the petitioner if you could please, Mr. Curtin, go through the conditions for demolition of the existing Moore Hall. That the demolition of that is part of this petition.
Certainly.
I mean, we do have the packet, but I'd like you to present the overview of it, please.
Pardon?
We do have the packet. I would just like you to give us the overview of it, please.
Correct. That packet was produced by Johnson Lasky. Is that the packet you're referring to?
Mm-hmm.
And we went through each aspect of this, the criterion. And so if I look at, I'll go through each criterion. Or, in essence, in summation, the building has fully utilized its use for the college. And so in terms of its adaptive reuse, it no longer suffices to supply the adequate size or depth of building to provide student housing, which it's currently providing, and it's not providing it to the level that the college wants it to provide. The building itself has, it's been stated as no historic significance, nor does it merit any preservation from a historic standpoint. The deficiencies in the building are multiple. They deal with not only ADA, life safety, also there are issues in terms of the building and its age and its condition, which there were numerous photographs that were provided as well. As far as the effect on neighboring properties, the demolition, and part of the criterion is that the replacement would do nothing to alter the value of the neighboring properties. This is nestled completely within the college itself. The building's offering no value for the neighbors themselves, and the replacement actually functions, and it is aesthetically an improvement for Moore Hall itself. I'm just going off of memory in terms of the criterion.
Fair enough. Okay, thank you so much. Okay, we'll come back to the board.
I have a quick question for the petitioner. The renderings that we have with the lighter and darker brick, even though this is the newer building, but that's a sort of a leftover from the original presentation. They're a lot closer, as you show here, than these computer renderings are.
The computer renderings can only do, so much.
Yeah.
And that's why having the physical samples here are important. And I would also encourage, the model has been updated, so the model actually reflects the revised design and massing of the project.
Okay. And the vertical black lines between rows of windows in both of the buildings, what is that? Is that a piece of metal or?
Those are recesses.
Oh, okay, and that's a shadow.
That's a shadow.
Yeah, okay, I get you, thank you.
I have a question. When I was at the site, again, I saw there was all kinds of flags. I think those were mostly utility flags. Was the northern end of the property, the two, I think they were green stakes, is that correct? Was it staked at all, or were those all just
I will
mechanical?
have to ask, was the building staked?
Yeah. It was, but it's confusing because basically, silly college. We've had to undertake some electrical rerouting at the site, so there's a number of flags there indicating buried utilities. So it's hard to say what you saw actually is, but the building was originally staked, and I believe it was green, so it's probably should be accurate.
Okay, the northern edge off of
Right.
Rosemary, there was two big dirt piles, and then it looked like there were two green stakes. I was just wondering if that's the northern edge of the proposed building.
I believe it is.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
I'm a little unclear about those vertical stripes. I'm not seeing any recesses in the floor plan. Could those be downspouts? Or how are you handling downspouts if they're proposed to be exterior?
Those are downspouts.
Okay.
I apologize if those are what you're referring to.
Yeah.
Yes, those are
Those are
downspouts.
downspouts, okay.
The recesses
The larger
larger
wider, it
recesses
incorporates an entire window.
for the living room.
Yeah. Well, I think you've got a larger scale of that, but it does show on that drawing too, but it's hard to see. But the horizontal stripes that occur under these occasional triple windows,
Yes,
what are those? Yeah.
right here.
Yep.
Those are brick reveals.
Okay, so it's a course of brick, or a few courses, and then another
Reveal.
course that's recessed?
Yes. It's a slight pattern as
Okay.
that interstitial space between the windows. We've placed a slight pattern of the same brick,
Okay.
but it's a slight texture.
And which brick is being used for what, or what brick is being used for which?
The darker brick is the field, the darker brick is the darker brick
The
represented,
more consistent,
which is,
and the more variated brick is for the one looks like it has more variation than the other, and the other looks like it has like a more consistent color to it.
the one on, that's right below my hand is the darker
You're
brick.
calling that darker, okay.
And then the one.
So
on-
that's the field color, this is the occasional between the windows and...
Correct.
And then on this too, where you have your stair towers, I'm seeing on the printed rendering that it looks like there's a third color of brick, or maybe it's again another reveal that's occurring right there, you see it?
That's.
No,
right-
it's a horizontal band,
That's a stone.
not the white
belt
one,
course.
but the one below it, and then the other one, no, not the white one, right? Between this first and second floor,
It's a,
it's a reveal,
It's a
not a
reveal.
chain, not a third brick.
correct.
And then the coping for that flat roofed stair element, is that metal or stone?
That would be, we would like that to be metal to match the stone, just
Same
for
color as the stone.
the same color.
And then on the, again, the larger rendering would probably be a better way of looking at it, or the larger elevation. Underneath the windows, it looks like that horizontal band goes from maybe 8-inch to 4-inch, or 8-inch to something else.
That's your sill for your window.
So it is a smaller dimension?
Correct.
Would you consider
We
running that
could, we were
straight
just
through, or
showing
is that?
the wash coming from the sill, so it's slightly lower
It's tilted.
elevations. Yes. Well, the sill itself would be formed, so it'd have the wash on top.
Does it start at the same height as the band and then reduces as it pitches out? Is that what I'm seeing? I guess I'm,
Right now, it's aligning with the bottom of the band, so,
Yes.
and that's keeping it consistent, but right now, we do have the window, the bottom portion of the window interrupting that band.
okay.
For the brick construction itself, are you proposing that it's a traditional 4-inch thick deep brick, or are you thinking it's going to be a thin brick paneled system?
No, it's a traditional brick
Okay,
construction with a cavity wall construction.
okay.
And while we're talking about the brick, what is the brick bond? What pattern? You're just showing the samples, but you're just using it.
It's a running bond.
Okay, thank you.
I noticed in the packet you have a three-dimensional model. That still shows the gables.
It does.
But that's incorrect, right?
That is incorrect,
Okay.
and I tried to qualify that as an early study.
Right, I understand. I just wanted to clarify that, because sometimes petitions have come where there's certain things in the packet.
Thanks for the
that are not-
clarification.
Okay.
We thought it was still helpful because it demonstrated the thought process to you as well.
Yeah, I think that's a great view. To have the models really helps the board understand the project.
And once again, the physical model too.
I have a question on that, let me see, the east side retaining wall. It appears to be kind of tight and close to the building.
Are you looking at a plan?
Any one of them you're showing, let's see, the retaining wall that's on the north. Yeah, how about lower level floor plan? That's that way, okay. What's that elevation difference? So I think it looked to me maybe like 6 or 7 feet, is that correct?
I think it's a little bit less than that. You're talking about the difference from this,
No, the other side. Yeah.
this point to this point?
Yeah.
Jody, do you happen to know that number?
And have you
It
thought
is-
about maybe swinging that wall out to allow more light into that lower level?
Oh, that's it. I'll go back. Be patient with us for 1 second. It's coming up shortly.
I count like 6 or 7 contour lines on the grading plan, I thought.
Here, you can see it's located, that's the difference right in there. That's your, actually that wall is not, the retaining is working with the slope of the topography as well. So it's not a flat retaining wall. That's an important aspect because all that is showing that sloped retaining area that still is trying to maximize the natural light that comes into that area.
Okay. Okay, it just looked like it was tight up against as opposed to maybe swinging it out a little further.
You mean in plan?
Yes.
I have to go.
It looks like there's definitely units there with windows kind of behind that, and I see what Peggy's saying, that they're gonna, the views of those residents on that first floor on both sides of the building, east and west, where that retaining wall is, the first couple units are gonna be, brick wall right up the side, from their window.
I think that wall is probably at least 15, if not 20 feet away from the building itself. So there's ample room. It actually is going to, for all practical purposes, be a little recessed courtyard or a little court area. We feel very comfortable actually with light that would come into the room because it's set back away from the building. It does allow us. This move in general of shifting the building or working with the topography, it's a little bit of a challenge. I think architecturally it does some very good things, but it's a little bit of a challenge to make sure all that, as you're pointing out, those rooms work and get plenty of natural light and vent.
Related question, the northeast corner of the site, maybe you could show the site plan. I'm not familiar with what exactly goes on in the sports field in front there, but you only have about 22 feet between the northeast corner and the playing field. I don't know if you have active football games or anything out there, but that would seem to be pretty close to have a corner of a brick building, 22 feet out, but maybe there's nothing formally done there and you can move the field a little east, I'm not sure.
As you can see, the Hickson Hall is the same relationship. And in fact, the service drive comes all the way up to the field line itself. So we felt comfortable with that corner location. We felt that the overall massing and siting were significantly beneficial, and that the approximation with Hickson was something that would be workable.
Just to add something to that, Charlie, I've been out there several times and I sit on that little wall that's at Hickson to watch my kids play football and such in that field, and it never really strikes me as being anything that's too close. And, I guess my last question is, why did you eliminate the gables in those recessed areas?
Well, actually, a couple of reasons. Let me go back to the elevation. The building is, in essence, the facade is significantly shorter than the facade that we showed you before, and that we have 2 recesses in this plan. And we felt that the eave being continuous, here we go, this eave being continuous, being interrupted in its length by the shift down, and then also being interrupted by these elements that are in essence bracketing the building. We felt that gave enough articulation to the roof profile without adding, I think, to a certain degree, the confusion of the gables. And also, too, when we look at Nolan across the way, not to say that everything is perfectly matched, but Nolan does have a fairly strong eave that this building would relate to. And in fact, the legs are approximately the length of Nolan, too. So everything starts to work together as a cohesive whole. Yet we're adding some variation on the coloration to bring a little richer hue to the overall aesthetic of that South Campus. So I don't know if that answered your question. But in essence, we felt that the movement in the building, the shortness of the leg, and also the brackets that are flat roofs, not only in the middle but on the ends, give us enough variation on that eave that it didn't need the gables.
I have a question on the north and south elevations with the bump out. You've got a stairway on in those bump outs, and that's what the long window is. And then the windows in the middle of the ends are the hallway. Did you consider windows? You'd be into a bedroom of one of the apartments, but on the blank brick wall, just to make it a little more symmetrical, did you consider putting any windows that would fit there? Or?
So we have a window here, and that's the stair. At the end of the corridor, what we've done in other residence halls, and it's kind of a nice feature to have,
right.
We put a little bench there.
I see, okay.
And so,
and it allows natural light in that hallway.
Correct.
Now, did you consider, just to make the end look more symmetrical, in the apartment, the blank brick wall is covering a bedroom in the apartment, a bedroom and a bathroom in the apartment. Did you consider any more windows there just to make it look more symmetrical? Or?
We didn't, but that's something certainly we could consider.
It might look too busy too, I don't know. I mean, I sketched them in here, and I don't know. Also, I'm looking at it straight on, and that bump out is, probably 6 or 8 feet,
Right.
And so, just a thought. I wondered if you guys thought it out.
We primarily wanted to capture that main window for the unit itself. Yeah. When you do put a window on the side, it limits the student's ability to bunk the bed.
Wall space, yeah.
Yeah, to loft the beds and put the desks underneath because the window would be in the way. With this arrangement, we have, actually the room is relatively symmetrical.
Yeah.
The window's in between the two beds on the other side.
Right. And you've got a bathroom there and a closet, so you can only put it in a certain spot.
Correct.
Okay, all right. I'm satisfied, thank you.
Did you give consideration to a basement in the south wing? I mean, you're already, in terms of excavation, you're already down there, and then you just have the footing over there. Wouldn't be a whole lot extra, and then you have that extra space.
It's all cost.
Okay.
It's, I mean, it's related to costs. So, as we develop the plans, there may be space that we might need for partial basement, but for this presentation, we're showing what we believe we are going to have. So, if we could get basement space, I'm sure everyone would enjoy it.
Right. Typically, it's a commons area. Okay.
Well, for the commons area, we like the idea of the full natural light. So having that on the primary floor is critical for student life and just making the building as enjoyable as possible for the students.
But the parties are good in the dark basements. So what is the highest elevation from grade at any point of the building?
5'6". I think the elevator override is taller. The rest is 42'8", but right there.
And that is what, I'm sorry, tell me.
55'8", 55'6" inches.
Okay, thank you.
Does the building have an elevator?
It does.
It does, okay.
We typically in these buildings, we like to do a slightly larger stair and encourage the students to take the stair. It's part of building community within the building itself.
I understand that, yeah.
So, and then we have one elevator for accessibility.
Okay. I don't see it on the, is it in the mechanical room or something, or?
Next to the stair.
Oh, okay, all right, okay, never mind. It's been pointed out to me, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And what is that distance between the new building and Nowlin as the sidewalk comes in? I know at our prior meeting, we had talked about that closeness and that tunnel effect, especially with the height of the building and the grade changes there. I think the fact that you reoriented it will help.
35'10"
Okay.
Just as a side note, the distance between the quad buildings is 42 feet.
Okay.
So to a certain degree, that's why it feels correct in the site plan, because it's related to the other setbacks.
Okay. Yeah, I just couldn't read it on this plan. Thank you. So it's 35, is that what you said?
35 feet,
35,
10
10.
inches.
I see, okay. Any further questions? Okay. Okay. At this time, we would welcome any comments from the public regarding this petition. Well, okay, hearing none. Does the petitioner have any final comments?
No.
Before we take it to discussion, okay, thank you. Then do we have any final questions from the board before we go to discussion? Okay, then we shall take it to discussion amongst the board. Yeah, I'd like you to start.
Okay, I'll start with, I think that the work that they've done is really good. The siding of the building is a big improvement from what we saw previously. And this plan really starts to relate to the other buildings and the quad. And in doing so, they also shorten the building by staggering it. So I think there's big improvements from what we previously saw. Just on the site and the footprint. And as Kathy mentioned in the staff report, that now I think that this is going to be less visible from Sheridan Road, where you're seeing it from a different angle, whereas before you were seeing the full mass of the building. At the last meeting, we also talked a lot about the building height, and I was most concerned about the northern portion of the building. I thought that the south part of the building was in the general footprint of the current Moore Hall and approximately the same height, whereas the north was a whole other building out there. And by them taking a look at this and working with the topography, I think it's a great solution. It's a big improvement. They're able to drop this one whole floor and still maintain the programming needs that they have for their students. So I want to say thank you to Lake Forest College and to the architect for listening to the concerns of the board from the last meeting and the subcommittee, and also from the staff. So I think this is very positive, heading in the right direction.
Thank you.
I have some comments. I agree with Mike on the building, and it's a vast improvement. On the demolition, haven't talked much about it. I think at our last meeting, when they were here, no one had any strong objections to it. The building is old, and to bring it up to date is prohibitively expensive and probably not worth it. So I would support the demolition of the existing Moore Hall. And I also can support the building as it's now proposed.
Okay.
I too wanted to thank the architect and Lake Forest College for working with us in the subcommittee. I think that the siding of the building is a nice improvement from what we were previously shown, and I think it does fit in with the existing buildings and addresses the residential gateway of Lake Forest College fairly nicely in its massing and proportion. I also think the exterior elevations are an improvement over what we saw previously. Before, I felt that the gables on the side elevations seemed a little, they seemed to make the building seem even more vertical. The proportions of that were a little awkward looking. So I think the simple hip roof really does kind of speak to the character of the dormitories that are already on the site. I do agree with staff and suggest that maybe some more detailing or improvement could happen at the bookends, the stairwell pieces, that perhaps those could be made to look a little bit more inviting as the gateway into the community, maybe a little bit more glass or something a little different. But otherwise, I think the direction is going well. The brick colors seem to be a good match with Nolan and the other buildings on the site. So agreeing with staff that maybe a subcommittee for some of the architectural details would be appropriate, but I do think the massing, which was a great concern last time, I think it's looking good. Good.
Yeah, I concur with my colleagues. I think it's a nice improvement and appreciate the efforts to get us to this point. So I am supportive of this petition and the demolition.
Okay.
Good job. I mean, I agree with most everything said here, or I agree with everything that was said. I have a few things to add and a couple of spots where I think some improvement is still, in my mind, I think there's areas that can be improved, but in general, I love the way the siding is. It definitely does, because it's no longer running parallel to Sheridan Road, it definitely does break up the scale of the building. Dropping the floor into the grade where we were concerned about the overall height before, I think you use that to your advantage and to satisfy the scale and size of the building. I think the tower elements for the elevators and the stair towers, I think those are, again, used nicely to break up the massing. I definitely think that the old building needs to come down. I just shudder to think that being not up to code and all that is something, the disaster waiting to happen. So I'm definitely in favor of tearing the old building down. But I'd like you, if you could just pause a minute to pull up that building, Moore Hall, for a second. And it exists in one of your photographs near the end of your presentation. Oops. Yep. If they were a little larger, and I'm looking really close at this, and I can see that some of the details that you've picked up, some of those horizontal bandings, stripes that were occurring underneath the windows are something that occurs here. I think the base being a different color, the punched openings that just are in alignment and repetitive along the length of the building. But there's a couple things here that I think are working with this building that aren't necessarily speaking to me on your building. And obviously one of them that just stands out right away at the gables. You know, there's the two larger gables. There's an occasional smaller gable, and then there's a bay window that projects out from the building. And there's also some one-story elements that just define an entry. And I think that's missing in this. I see this building, again, as something that is designed around a functioning floor plan, which we all want. I see that it has picked up on some of the relationships of the other buildings on campus. But to me, it still looks like something that's extruded because, I mean, that's what the plan is telling us to do. What I like about you know, your building is this occasional glass sitting area that addresses itself to the quad. I think the quad has been better defined by the offset building. To me, it's almost there. I would just like to see at subcommittee level something that picks up on, and I don't want to call it a residential character on that building because it's 4 stories tall, but something evokes a little history and a little of that collegiate atmosphere that's consistent throughout, you know, the college. It's not necessarily in the dorms because I think those were something that was produced at a date and time when you know, architects were fighting against tradition and gables were just a dirty word. But I think we've all decided that that was like disco, that was something we were glad it was gone, and we're really ready to understand what was history and how to use it appropriately. And I just would like to see that, a little bit of that character, and maybe I'll call it residential character, I don't know, because residents have a lot of gables in them, but something other than a large expansive roof. And I like the way the building undulates with some of the windows coming in and out. I like the brick and how it's used, because I think it is reminiscent of the other building, so you have picked up on your context. I'm not convinced with just the small samples that I see here that these bricks are different enough to do what you're trying to do, and I'd like to work to see that those are. Sometimes you get so close, you're off. And sometimes if you're trying for too much contrast, it just comes across as hideous. So I get what you're doing. I just want to make sure with these small 4 or 5 brick samples that you brought in, that it's really accomplishing what you want to do. And whether or not you reverse the selection of brick and the variated brick becomes the field, and the accent brick, because it is more consistent, might read better as the outlining, and that kind of thing. So I don't have the answers for that, nor do I want to be you know, dictating that. I think you've done a great job. I think it's something that I can support, but I do feel it should continue with a little bit more tweaking in subcommittee.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree that it's come a long way, and everyone certainly appreciates all the efforts that were made to change it according to all the concerns that the board had from the last time. Kathy, I have a question for you. The staff recommendation is to approve the demolition, and then obviously have the subcommittee work on the final details. So is the recommendation for the replacement structure to be on a consent, or can we continue that with still having the approval on the demolition?
The staff recommendation was that you actually take action and approve it and delegate the refinement, really continuing through the review of the working drawings to a subcommittee.
Okay.
If you're not comfortable doing that, you can certainly have something come back on a consent agenda. I think you did have a subcommittee that made tremendous progress and worked
Absolutely.
well with the college. So we would stand by our recommendation to recommend approval of the demolition and recommend approval of the replacement structure, subject to the subcommittee working. Certainly the subcommittee, if they weren't comfortable, could always direct the petition back to the board, but that would be
Okay.
their call.
Thank you. I'd like to hear your feelings on that. It seems to me like there are still a fair number of items that this board, it would be fair enough to ask it to be as a consent possibly to come back and so we could kind of see it again. What are your opinions? I mean, I
think it's a
mean,
big-
I trust the subcommittee, but it's such a big project. It's a
Right.
big scope.
It's a big
that
building. It's
it
in a
is.
very visible
It's high profile.
residential, high profile.
Absolutely.
I think it should come back on a consent agenda, but I think we could probably get that in one more meeting.
Well, I would be comfortable with the staff recommendation on what the staff has suggested on this,
Okay.
with it being approved at this level, going to the subcommittee. I'd be comfortable with that.
I agree with Mike.
I would be comfortable with that also.
Okay. And not coming back before the board.
Not coming back unless the subcommittee feels that they're at loggerheads, and they would then have the authority to say, well, it's going back.
Okay. Good. I wanted to see what, how we felt on that. We've seen things come back and had concerns. Okay. Do I hear a motion regarding this petition?
I'll make a motion on the demolition. I move that the existing Moore Hall be demolished to make room for the new dormitory, as shown to us with some perhaps modifications put in by the subcommittee. So this is the demolition motion,
Subject to the replacement.
and subject to the replacement, yes.
Fair enough. Okay. Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Excellent. That motion carries. Thank you. Now do I hear a motion regarding the replacement structure?
Well, I'll move that we approve the replacement structure as shown with the staff recommendations as stated, and working with the subcommittee, the existing subcommittee from the Building Review Board to solve some of the smaller issues that we have discussed here. Subcommittee has the authority to approve it or to bring it back to the full board for more discussion if they feel so.
Second it?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Opposed?
One opposed. Abstain? None. Excellent. Motion carries with one opposing vote. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you to everyone involved. Thank you for your time, and congratulations. And I'm sure staff will get in touch with you regarding the further refinements. Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is another continued petition, a request for approval of a building scale variance for an addition to the existing structure located at 835 Holden Court. Owners are Greg and Janice Smith. Representative is Jim Wells. Do we have any board members that have any conflicts of interest or ex parte contacts? Hearing none, okay.
direction here.
Good evening. My name is Jim Wells. I'm with Icon Building Group, and I'm here to represent Greg and Janice Smith of 835 Holden Court. I would like to point out that Greg Smith is in the audience and is available for any direct questions or comments from the board. As outlined, this is a continuance. This petition has been in front of the board before. Based on the comments that were received back in September, the Smiths decided to reach out to us and try to address the architecture and landscaping based on the comments that they received. Start over with a whole new design, flair, and group to help them through the process. From the beginning, from when the Smiths originally designed their home, they've always envisioned a first floor master suite at some point in their life. They now have decided for a lifestyle change, meaning that the second floor contains the master suite, and they would like to move down, obviously, to the first floor for various reasons. They also want to note that there is an investment opportunity here in the home, mainly because the home is the smallest home in the subdivision, and even with this variance that we're requesting from the board, they will still have the smallest home in the subdivision. They're requesting a bulk, excuse me, they're requesting a bulk variance to the ordinance of 816 square feet, or 12.8%, which is what their overage is. The plat of the property that is up there, I would like to note, is 56,587 square feet. As you can see, the addition is to the left side of the home, and we are building out to the 20-foot side yard setback line. We are not going to be encroaching it, therefore we're still within the approved zoning for the property. I brought these slides to show the original architecture that was presented back in September. This was the front elevation of the home, the side elevation of the proposed addition, and the rear elevation of the addition. We took into account the comments regarding mass, blending the structure in with the house, and have developed a new form of architecture for the addition that we feel better suits the home and the neighborhood. We've taken into account some of the existing design elements of the home, which is probably better illustrated on the black and white version, starting with defining the eave line of the home. We've also incorporated the windows, tried to bring in the architectural detail of the transoms, not only above the front door, but at the second floor lines as well. Reduce the massive gable that was originally on the front elevation down to a hip roof with a accent smaller gable, which is above their tub on the inside of the home. We've also wanted to point out that we're using some of the other existing details of the home, such as the eyebrow gables, and also have aligned the roof pitch of the hip with the main roof pitch of the house. This is the proposed side elevation as it relates to the rest of the home. Again, we have softened this elevation by introducing a hip with an overlay. And this is the back proposed addition. And again, instead of having the mass of the gable that was originally proposed, we have laid down the roof and cut back in the hip to better give the aesthetic and match up here with the bay, kind of, we tried to incorporate the smaller bay element on the back of the home as well. The floor plan, the Smiths have taken great time in exploring their different options with the floor plan. We would like to point out that there was a comment about seeing how furniture might lay out within this addition. So we did provide a furniture plan as well. I wanted just to show the roof. There's a plan view of the roof in your packet and how all the roof lines match up and work with the existing structure. The existing home is actually up in this section, so there's just this valley. The rest of this is all eave line and the front gable. This is a close-up of the front elevation of the addition. Again, showing the detailing. We are going to use the existing brick and the stone accents that are on the home. We better define the plate heights and what's going on with the floor. The home does have a small knee wall to match the rest of the home. It does sit up a little bit, about 2 feet. And then we also define where the roof, or I'm sorry, where the windows land within the, in relation to the overhang, as well as incorporating this little transom in. We also recognize that staff had a comment regarding what this elevation might look like without the transom. There's a comment regarding considering not putting the transom in. So this is what the elevation, we did do a study to show what the elevation might look like without that transom window. Again, with and without. We just feel it adds a little more aesthetic from the curb. The landscaping, we also acknowledge the comments that were given back on the landscaping. We went back to the original landscape architect and installation company that did the rest of the yard, which was Don Fiore, and working with them have come up with a plant removal plan. And as you can see, there's basically 5 trees that are going to be removed. We feel that this is having minimal impact on the existing mature landscaping. The blue actually represents trees that we're going to be, or bushes that will be transplanted during this process. We do have a staging area selected on site where we would be taking these plants, storing them in the back of the yard, and then bringing them back once the addition has been completed. I would also like to note that the 5th tree is also a storm damage tree, and it needs to be removed anyway, so although it's on here, it has not been removed as of yet. This is the proposed planting plan. Again, we're illustrating bringing back our transplants, which are highlighted in the blue, and bringing in and introducing all the new plantings. There is a list up in the upper right-hand corner of both the planting plan and the removal plan, showing plants that will be removed, plantings that are being transplanted, as well as defining how many plants are being brought back in. We feel that the new planting plan is consistent with the existing, and by including this additional landscaping here, we're also providing a little additional screening to the neighbors as well. I did include some aerial shots of the home. One of the things we wanted to point out is basically where the home is sitting in relationship to the tree line as well as the neighboring homes. Again, here's another aerial illustrating where the addition sits in comparison to the adjacent homes. And in front is where the cul-de-sac obviously comes up. This is a picture from Holden Court as you're approaching the home. The home is in a secluded cul-de-sac, and it's fairly difficult to see where the addition is going, even from different angles Obviously, this is taken right at the corner of the driveway. The addition is going back over here to the left-hand side of the home. A little bit better shot of that. This is from the neighboring driveway, looking down. Again, from the neighbor's side, looking at the home. The tree in the front is staying, and there's another tree just about the same size of it in the back, which will need to be removed due to the overdig of the foundation. This tree is represented as being removed on the planting plan as well. This is a view from the backyard, looking at where the addition wants to go. And I guess we're at the end of my time, but I would like to summarize by asking the board for approval of the variance. We feel that we're, based on the criteria, we fall within the design standards of the city code, that we're still within our zoning, and the addition, the new proposed architecture of the addition is in conformance with the surrounding neighborhood homes, as well as consistent with the architecture of the existing home. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Wells. This time we will have staff present their report.
Thank you, Chairman. This petition has actually been before the board on several occasions. Most recently, last year in 2011, the petition brought forward a similar project that was reviewed several years ago. And based on the drawings that were presented to the board at that time, the board expressed some hesitation about granting a building scale variance of the magnitude presented. But now the petitioner has taken those comments that they heard at the last meeting. They're working with a new design team, and they've developed a revised plan that really tries to reduce the impact of mass from the street in form and design detailing. They've also presented a more cohesive packet to the board, including landscape drawings, consistent elevations and floor plans, some of the items that were missing from the discussion in the last time the board reviewed this project. This project, from staff's perspective, is a unique project. It really does appear to meet the intent of the building scale ordinance, and doesn't create a project that is overscaled for the street or is out of place or out of character with respect to the other homes in the area. The previous project presented a more massive face to the front with the gable roof. The current petition chose to do a hip roof to really reduce the mass as you see it from the street and from neighboring properties as well. Other mitigating factors for this project include the existing and proposed landscaping. I think now that it's clear what's coming out and what's being replanted, that information was helpful in really understanding the impact of this project on the neighboring properties. This property is located at the end of a cul-de-sac. It's not a well or heavily trafficked area, and it's also adjacent to land owned by Lake Forest Open Lands. So at this time, staff is recommending approval of the project. There was a comment, as was noted by the petitioner, about some of the massing with the front-facing gable, and just in an effort to further reduce the appearance of mass of that piece of architecture and really let it fade into the landscaping, staff did recommend the board provide some input on that front gable face. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Megan. We will now take it to the board for any questions to the staff or the petitioner.
Question to staff, have we heard at all from the people at 840 Holden? The neighbor to the most affected by the addition, the neighbor to the left?
We did provide standard neighborhood notice. That property was sent a notice, and we have not heard any comments.
Megan, what was the size of the, what was the square footage of the overage request before?
The overall footprint of the project has not changed dramatically. I think with the current proposal, some of the numbers shifted a little bit as more concrete drawings were created to really represent the existing house and the proposed addition. But in general, the the footprint did not change dramatically. It was more looking at detailing and changing the mass of it to be more compatible with the existing structure.
Okay, thank you.
Megan, I have another question regarding the area. I know in the past, and I think in the packet, it was stated that the petitioners had always intended to build this addition, and when the home was first built, it complied with the existing bulk ordinance. Has the calculation ever been done under the old bulk calculation? How much area would have been left to create a new addition?
Staff did not complete a calculation based on the old methodology. I do believe when this was before the board several years ago, there was an estimate done that this would be in compliance at that time. However, I think it's important that the board look at the standards that are before you today in the current ordinance and provide findings with respect to those standards.
Thank you.
I have another question of the staff. In their report, it says that the houses in that subdivision are all substantially larger. If the houses in that subdivision were to come forward with a similar petition, would they be in the same type of boat? Are they all looking at a possible variance because of the changes that have occurred in the bulk ordinance?
It would be on a case-by-case basis, but certainly if a project came before the board that needed a building scale variance, they would be under the current criteria. I think what makes this project unique is that it does meet several of the criteria that are in the ordinance, including adjacency to open lands, minimizing the appearance of mass from the street. So I think there is some uniqueness to this project.
And I would just add that as we've looked at this, the other homes in this subdivision, again, we're working under today's ordinance, but looking backwards, the other homes in this subdivision were maxed out with respect to the old allowable number. This house was consciously kept below because there was this intent to build a first floor master. So that creates a little bit of even though we're playing a little bit of a numbers game, I think consciously not maxing out this house at the beginning and knowing that these are the people who built the house, that seems to create a little bit different scenario that doesn't fit neatly into any of the criteria in the code.
Also, as I recall, going through this the 3 times we have, this lot was the smallest lot in the subdivision. It's a pie-shaped lot. All the other homes are on larger homes. And relating to John's comment on the house to the north, that house in relation to their southern lot line, or the lot line that separates this, they have a driveway there, and then their house is considerably further to the north. So with a lot of vegetation in between. So.
I have a question probably for Mr. Smith to answer, but in designing this house and suggesting that you were going to ultimately put in a first floor master, is that the reason this hallway just appears to dead end near the powder room there? Well, when you designed this house, and I'm suggesting your intent was to do a first floor master or have the option to do a first floor master. Right. As I'm looking at the drawings here, it looks like as you come down the hallway, and I don't have the entire floor plan, I just have this little section of it, but as you come toward the hallway heading in toward where you're proposing this addition, were those doors there? Were they going outside? Was it the intent to, at this dead-end hallway, to have some...
Yeah, we came with a central entrance going into the living room. If you turn to the left, we turn to corridor, and then we have a powder room, right. And at the end, we put a double door, which was the entry to the master bedroom. We then have doors to the right that go outside.
The future master bedroom.
For the future master bedroom. So we laid it out so that we would have a cased opening, and we would just be able to take those doors out and punch out to the master suite, and let it, and then, but we still then had those doors going down to the backyard, and we had a powder room to the left.
Okay. So what does it step off to now, a patio?
Yes, yeah, it goes, it doesn't go down to a patio, it goes down to stair steps, and then some stone pavers going out to the pool.
Okay. But that entry is toward, that entry is on the right-hand side. If this is a continuation of that path down the hall where you have another set of French doors there, right?
We have a floor plan.
Pull up, yeah, pull up your floor plan if you could,
Click
please.
the floor plan.
There. So those doors there, are those existing doors? Those two?
Yeah, yeah, those two are existing, but they
Where do
are
they go?
existing as a closet. So they are out
Oh,
about
okay. Is
a
that a
foot and a
co-
half or so closet depth.
I see.
And so
So
it's
that's
just
a
facing
coat,
to go
is that your
in.
coat closet for your guests?
So that's a coat closet. We have another coat closet. So we have two.
Okay.
We have one in the foyer itself.
Okay.
But so this is a secondary closet.
Okay, so you, when you designed this, your intent was to take that closet off and have a continuation of the
Absolutely.
hall
It was
into that
cased
downstairs master
and ready to
bedroom?
go.
Okay, that answers my
And,
question.
and just to clarify, on the original landscape plan for the original house, even though it wasn't approved, there was actually an addition sketched in this very area. So it was a very real piece that was a thoughtful process to say, we know we want to build this, we're going to make the house smaller, and this is where it's going to go.
Right.
Okay.
I have a question for the architect. You had shown a suggested thing, I think staff recommended on the window. You were showing the eyebrow arch or transom carried from the second floor in the front entrance. Is that correct?
Correct, yes.
And then you showed another sketch with that eliminated, which I think the thought there is to reduce some of the massing a little bit more. Okay, I think I tend to like that without it, but whatever. Okay, you've answered my question. Thank you.
I have a question of the petitioner. You said you had gone through all the staff recommendations from before. I think there was talk, my recollection was in possibly closing in the addition closer to the house, so to help reduce the mass also. Did you consider that?
We did consider that, and our concerns were, maybe it shows better here on this plan. I believe you're talking about closing this area, bringing the structure in and pulling it in back. We did take a look at that. The existing home here is a 1.5-story element with windows on this side of the home, and the owner and we felt that this was would detract from this room and this space of the existing home by removing those windows. This is actually facing northerly, and this room lights up very nice. We were also concerned about, if we pulled this in, how the roof lines would match up to this house and then play off the 1.5-story structure on the back of the home. So we decided to leave this, given that this hallway is existing inside, as we previously went through on the last question, and there's a formal powder room, so without getting into remodeling that section of the home, we decided to leave it.
Okay. At this time, is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak regarding this petition? Hearing none, thank you. Does the petitioner have any final comments? How about final questions from the board before we go to discussion?
I don't know if the petitioner has any preference on the window, or what your thoughts on the staff recommendation about the transom window is?
Yeah, Mr. Smith and I discussed this earlier this evening. We can go either way. We prefer to have it, but, you know, from the curb appeal, and we feel that it blends nicer with the home, but we'll take the board's recommendation.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, we'll take it to the board for discussion. Who would like to open it up?
I guess I'll start. I think, and I've been on the board, I think this has come back twice. We've seen this 3 times, so my concern with the petition all along has been the overage in the bulk, and a 12.8% overage to me is substantial. And I believe one of the last meetings I actually read out of the building scale, you know, section that, you know, we as a board look at what I felt, you know, my task was to what I look at when I'm looking at overage. And one of the things the city says, you know, the bulk is there to maintain an appropriate balance between building scale and the local environment. So the bulk ordinance is there for a reason. There's a calculation there, and it is trying to mitigate how much building you can put on these pieces of land. And I know there's special circumstances and there are overages that the board passes. Last time this petition came, it was 12.8% over, and it's come back to us at that exact same overage. So I feel that they haven't really wanted to reduce the bulk of it. The exterior massing itself, I don't see that it's really subordinate to the main house at all. You know, the 840 some square feet to me still looks like a substantial addition to the property. It actually is almost competing to the main building, you know, with that other small gable. The proportion of the gable, I think, definitely, if it would go forward, needs some improvement. But overall, I just feel that 12.8% is a lot to ask for.
Can I go
Please.
next? There's things I like and there's things I don't like, and I have to struggle with how to vote on this one because I'm thinking there might be some mitigating issues, or I'm trying to like sort through the history of, okay, I've designed this to have this addition. I thought under the original ordinance I was able to do that. And I gotta tell you, I've had clients all the time that at a certain age in their life, they want to be upstairs with the kids, and at a certain age in their life, they want to be downstairs so that they're not walking up and downstairs and the kids are going off to college and all that kind of stuff. So I'm trying to put my head around it. I'll kind of suggest the things I like and then my don't likes, and you know, I'll see if anybody shares my opinion, but I like the hips versus what we had before. Well, first of all, I like the presentation much better than what we had before. Thank you. I think it's more consistent with the architecture of the existing house. And when I see this elevation, and I see how the element on the left, the one-story element, anchors the building on that side as the garage does on the right-hand side, and then the symmetry of the two gables in the center and the door seem to complete the what I would consider an appropriate and good design for this house. Without that piece, it appears to just come to a two-story side and drop right off. So I'm trying to think in my mind what the approach that, and I'm guessing this thing's about 23 or 4 feet wide. I know the numbers here, but I try to look for it. What the visual impact to the one person's driveway on that side is, looking at a two-story wall or looking at a one-story wall closer. And I think with the appropriate landscaping and what they've done with the hip roof, which mitigates the scale of this thing, I think that suggests that I like the design. Now, do I like the fact that the floor plan came in at 12.8 square feet again? That there's no restraint in trying to make it some compromise in smaller closet or, you know, a lesser something. You know, it seems to be, and everybody's opinion of what large is their opinion, but it just doesn't show that I'm trying, and that troubles me. Now, on the other side of the bulk issue, I mean, I got to understand what bulk is. Well, it's so that big houses don't go on small lots, or that somebody's daylight isn't compromised because something is large next to them. I think with the hip roofs and the way I look at this site plan and the neighbors that are quite far away, I guess I'm not seeing that the bulk rules are protecting somebody. And especially considering we've got open lands that are contiguous to this. I mean, if you took that invisible rear property line and pushed it over 10 feet into open lands, well, you know, you're not going to change the visual impact of anything, but now the house will fit into bulk. I'm struggling with that. And then I'm struggling with, well, if we let them do it, we're going to have somebody else come in and say, I told you so, and they want to do it. So I don't know what to vote. These are just my thoughts, and I want to hear your opinions. Thanks.
I have some comments on it. It is a 12% plus addition. I think there are a lot of mitigating circumstances. They had approval on this and let that permit expire. I voted for it at that time, and I would vote for it again this time. As far as shrinking the room, looking at it, it isn't a large room per se for a master bedroom. And yeah, you could probably make it a little less in length or depth from front to rear, but then you're cutting into the bedroom area and the sitting area, which they have a fireplace. They do have a dressing room. They've got a very nice bathroom. I think the mitigating circumstances override the size of the overage that they want of the 12%. So I would have to support it. Regarding the house next door, a house down the street, I think you would look at those one at a time and look at the size of the lots that they're on and what the conditions are. And that does not bother me that somebody would come back and say, you let the Smiths do it, why can't we do it? I think each one would be looked at under its own circumstances. I can support what is shown us.
I was out there today and I took a look at it, and looking at the left side of the house where it does kind of just stop at a two-story element, it does appear as if, you know, that this does kind of finish that off. And I agree with John's comments on the design and that aspect of it. Looking at the standards that we need to base this on, I think there's certainly standard 1 and I think the standard 4 are easily met, and I think you can make a strong case for 2 or 3 other standards. I don't think that this is typical of that subdivision. I think this has a unique character to it, unique nature, and based on that, I can support this.
Well, I've had the same struggles as John. I think you've done a nice job with this redesign. I do think it's much more fitting with the rest of the house, and it seems to bookend it quite nicely with that garage element. I was one that was really up in arms about that bulk. It just seems such a large variance, and I am troubled that not 1 percentage point was taken off it here in a redesign element. So I'm torn, and I don't know. I'd like to hear some other board members' views here on this.
Well, I think that while they did do a nice job in the redesign, the fact that the numbers are still the same is of great concern. I think that was a huge factor in the voting last time. And there was a strong desire to see that bulk be reduced.
I mean, I'm not a hard and firm guy when it comes to rules, but sometimes, I mean, when the rules make sense.
Right, and anyone can come before us and say,
right.
Well, under the old rule, well, it's not the old rule anymore, it's this rule.
But if you came asking for an overage and you had a bad design, I'm just going to pull my hair out and scream. But
agreed.
To come and ask for an overage with a good design, I can at least entertain the idea. But again, I'll go back to what I think was troubling everybody is 12.8.
Right.
You know, where is the give and the take? I mean, they're asking us to violate an ordinance, but not to take an extra foot out of what looks to be like 100 square foot closet and another 50 square foot closet. I mean, these are some big spaces, and there's lots of fixtures and plenty of leg room, and I would appreciate consideration or at least a respect of what our ordinances are and what they try to do.
And I also feel the addition is at the front of the house and in kind of the tightest corner that you can put it. It's right up to the side yard setback. I mean, almost like, okay, if you have 12% and it's at the back of the house where nobody can see it, and it works with the floor plan.
Well, it is on a little private court that's had only a couple houses on it, so it's not in your face to that really turns up the volume on what you just said. But I would love to hear from that neighbor that's the only one that seems to be affected. And
I asked that question last time, and the petitioner said that
they were out of town or something.
Yeah, they didn't respond. So.
Well, with that pie-shaped lot too, everything's kind of pushed forward, and it's just right front and center there.
But you recognize it as a smaller lot based on the fact that it's pie-shaped. So that's what I think is working against it, because you do recognize the fact that it's a smaller lot. And so the streetscape does look like it's a bigger home on a smaller lot.
Right. Well, and I think that's what part of the bulk ordinance, I mean, to not overbuild the land and the lot. You know, 12% it's almost 13%. It's a big overage. And I mean, I do understand that the petitioners would want a first floor master suite, and but even looking at the floor plan, if it is to be an accessible first floor master bedroom suite, I mean, the plan, you know, architecturally would probably need to be reworked for somebody if they had, you know, to use a wheelchair or something like that, because it's not ADA conformable. But I just, personally, I just think the 12.8% is a lot, and that I stated that at the last meeting, and it was not addressed when it came back.
Further comments based on that? I think John's comment of the fact that the architecture is a little more appealing makes it more palatable, but the fact is the bulk is still there. Would you like to continue it and see if the petitioner would like to try to further refine it based on bulk? We can ask.
I thought we asked that last time and they didn't want to. Is that right?
Yes.
Your question is what? Do we want to continue it, or do we want to vote for it?
It's open to discussion.
Well, I've declared I'm for it. Mike's declared he's for it. And we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 up in the air.
I think the 4 over here, it sounds like at this bulk probably going to say no.
Or look for some reduction in bulk.
Right, which is why.
And can we give the petitioner some direction? I mean, could you live with 10%, 9%, 7%? I mean, now that's, I guess that's the question, if I was a petitioner.
Exactly, that's a good question.
That's a good question.
I don't know. I'm still on the fence, but a couple of things that I see that, again, are not being considerate towards addressing the bulk is the taller plate height and the gable element. I mean, it's only a foot taller than the rest of the roof, but if I was if I was presenting to this board and wanted a bulk overage of 12, almost 13%, you can bet you I would do everything I could to try to mitigate this appearance of bulk. And I would look for areas that I can make modifications to my plan that still allow me to furnish it, put a bed, have plenty of leg room, whatever closet we need. I mean, if there's a lot of times I'll tell a client that there's seasonal clothes that can be put into a closet that's remote from the bedroom, and you know, we've got a his and we've got a her vanity, a giant makeup, a toilet bidet, a whirlpool, a big shower with a giant seat and lots of leg room. And I guess you know, I'm here to wear a couple hats. I'm here to judge the aesthetics, but I'm also here to enforce the ordinance in a way. And I think Charlie said it, that we just need to do something that's going to make this a little easier and not just come back with the same thing and force an issue.
We haven't talked to anything about the second chimney there. Does the board, anyone on the board have anything on that? Would that help the massing if that came away, or do you need that to kind of mirror the...
I think it breaks up the massing.
Yeah.
It breaks up? That's,
Yeah.
I didn't...
And a couple of things. I mean, the little bay window breaks up the massing.
Yeah.
You know, the change in the plane of the hips with a little bump breaks up the massing. But it's just...
But as far as the massing, the bay window is in the rear. It's a 35-foot by 25-foot building. I mean, you take 2 feet off of its length, 2 feet off of its width. Have you made it so that it's not practical at all? And as far as moving winter clothes to a different closet, I do that, or my wife does that, and I think it's a pain, you know, if you could build something.
And I like the debate we're having, because there's landscaping.
I understand.
There's landscaping that goes into this thing that helps hide it.
But I do think 819 square feet is a large room.
Well, it is, but it's covering a big master bath. I mean, but where are you going to take it off? You can only take it off of the length and the width, making the closet smaller. That isn't going to do anything. I mean, you got to make everything smaller.
And like I started to say, what I'm trouble with in this is that there is a lot of open land around it. So the number is related to the property line. Well, that property line is only on a piece of paper. You don't see it in reality. Trees, well, okay, that changes the scale of a lot of things. This is, you know, on a court, a cul-de-sac with, I don't know how many houses, maybe 3. The house that's most affected has a long driveway, and the house isn't as close to this as, you know, the property line or whatever. So I'm hesitant to open up a can of worms and allow a 13% overage and swallow you know, my pride a little bit on being the guardian of the ordinance and letting the, you know, something happen that, but I just, this one is a struggle.
I might just add that you talked a little bit about should you give a percentage of how much overage would be acceptable. I would caution you against doing that, because if you're going to say we're okay with 8%, you might as well change the building scale ordinance. The variance process is there specifically to allow this board to look at projects, look at unique aspects of projects, and to grant a variance. There's certainly the magnitude of the variance is important, but keep in mind that there's nothing in the ordinance that says you can grant a variance up to 10%. So I just want to emphasize that the variance process is there to allow you to look at each petition individually and the specific factors related to that petition.
Thank you. It sounds like we're sensitive to certainly, you know, what a petitioner would want and being able to add on to their house, but it's still the struggle of even, you know, keeping in mind what Kathy said. If it still feels like it's too much bulk for not the right reasons, then that's a big issue.
Well, but we're hung up, and as Kathy said, okay, let's say we knock 2 to 3 percentage points off. Is it? I mean,
It's meaningless.
9%, is that better than 12?
Well, maybe it is if it came back.
But
Maybe
at a
if,
certain point, if you take out 100 or 200 square feet, then you jeopardize the design of it.
Yeah, right.
But the design, I mean,
Not
the design
necessarily.
is, you know, perhaps the design can use some, you know, reduction. It's a generous master suite.
I think the only meaningful thing that would come out of a reduction in the square footage, from my standpoint, would be to show consideration toward what we do and what our ordinance is for and that kind of stuff. So to me, it's a gesture. It isn't so much a number that I'm looking for. I like the design. I'd like to see him have his first floor master. I think there's enough unique issues related to this one that could persuade me to vote in favor of it, but my fur's rubbed wrong because of lack of restraint in presenting this twice now.
okay.
Well,
I guess maybe we should ask the homeowner. Would you be willing to reduce the square footage on this a little?
I think 4 years ago when we started, we came in with a much more significant vision of what we would like to do. My closet wasn't going to be 5 feet by 7 feet, and it's now 5 feet by 7 feet. After 8 or 9 months of working through a very capable staff, our vision from what we came in for was significantly reduced, probably down 20% from what we would like to have done. And when we talked to architects, they said master suites for homes in this area are going to be somewhere between 1,000 and 1,200 feet, maybe 900, 950, 800 feet where the, you know, his and her closet, hers isn't big, mine, my wife's isn't big, mine is quite small. The space to stand in the bath is about 4 feet across between the counters. So when you really look at the space, and then, you know, so that's that one end. And when you come down to my end, it's enough to create walking area to the shower at the bath. You know, I don't really know the specific numbers, but when we looked at it, we tried to squeeze it down and down. We didn't get any further than that. In the sitting area, I think if you go from where the chairs are, I think the back of the chair to the bed is something like 3.5 or 4 feet. And from the chair to the fireplace, it's been a while since I looked in the detail of the plans, it's probably something like 5 feet. So it's not that we're sitting with a spacious area where you have 10 feet to a wall and 6 feet behind you or 8 feet behind you. So we really did try very, very hard. We heard loud and clear before we came in the first time, and there were a number of revisions, and that's 4 years ago, to try to work it through. But you know, fundamentally, we went through, before we came in, the process with staff to reduce it. And we got pushed very, very hard. They said, there's no chance if you come in. So we eliminated his and her separate baths and, you know, toilets, and said, okay, forget that. And, you know, we had thought of a larger shower or a larger this, and we tried to compress it down. We heard it, and we knew it was going to be a challenge to go through a variance process here. From our neighbor's perspective, from the north wall of our home to the front door of our neighbor is about 100 yards. It's almost a football field. That's just so long. They can't really see our house, and we can't see them. We planted all the landscaping up and down because we wanted a private backyard. And we knew we were going to come someday, you know, when we were ready to put the master suite in. And then we relied on the bulk at that time. We pulled back about 800 feet to build this, and we relied on it, and it changed. So in the context of our neighborhood, we're the ones that are out of context, and that was a statement about the purpose of the bulk. We're out of context because we're smaller than everybody in our cul-de-sac, and yes, you know, some of them have bigger lots, but when you just adjust it, you go around our neighborhood too for lots that are the same size or smaller than ours, and their homes are built to bulk, and they are up. So when we put up a chart 4 years ago and went through, and you saw all the house sizes going along, and then you see one house, which is ours, down lower. And because we pulled it back consciously, we relied on, in the future, when we came back and our sons were off to college, it would be time to put a master bedroom on, and we would then, you know, move ourselves to the main floor. So we're only saying, can we make our home consistent with our neighbors' homes? And our neighbors have supported. We have, you know, 2 of our neighbors have written letters. Our architecture review committee, and you know, Lloyd Culbertson was on this board, and he's on our committee, and he supported it. He said he thinks this is appropriate. It shouldn't be a precedent, but he thinks in this case, knowing these circumstances. So there's a lot that's gone on in 4 years. We were approved by a prior board, as you know, but the approval came in November of 2008. The world changed for a lot of people with a lot of plans at the end of 2008. So, you know, we did not pull the permit. And we didn't go ahead at that time. We waited to see how everything evolved and shook out. When we came back, they said, well, by a few months, you missed it. And so now your permit has expired. So now you have to go back, and we will just, you know, reissue that and re-up. We're going to have a number of them. Then as you had to deal with that more and more, it became a process of, well, we should look at this and make sure. And I understand that. It couldn't just be, I'd like it to have been something simple and just check it off, you reapplied. But it wasn't, and then we started in, and so for the last, you know, 8 or 9 months, we've been going through, you know, this process again. But we sat there with a previous approval from a previous board that put us through a lot of thought and challenges to come with a better product. I think, in hindsight, as I look at this plan, I like this elevation better. I think it's a nicer elevation. I think we benefit from that, and Jim and his team have done a great job, and Janice and I are appreciative of that. But we don't feel we can get a master suite and shrink it more than we have already shrunk it in the 4 years of the process. We would love to have the approval to say, okay, it was approved 4 years ago, you've modified this and you've softened that, and that we can go ahead, because we're trying to bring our home consistent to that of our neighbors, and we're the ones that are out of step with them right now.
Thank you very much.
Well, I read from Mr. Smith's comments that he has squeezed it down, and
But not from what it was first presented to the board as.
no, but when it was presented 4 years ago, when they started with a different architect, he was told that it should be 1,000 square feet, and that wasn't going to go.
That's not relevant.
Well, yes, it is.
I tell you, your house should be 1,000,000 square feet, and you bring it down to bulk. That's not relevant.
But the point, I think the point is, or I think what I determined from Mr. Smith is that the reason that he didn't come back to this meeting with a smaller overage, percentage overage, is he's not willing to do that. He's down to the point. Interrupt me if I'm not telling what you really are saying. That if he has to go a lot smaller, he probably won't do it.
I wanted to point out, you do have a letter in your packet from the Homeowners Association.
Right.
The Homeowners
Yes.
Association has reviewed this recently, as they did before, and has weighed in support of what's requested.
And at the time that we last voted it in, Lloyd was on the board, and he reclused himself because he was on that homeowners association.
Okay.
So,
But the bulk hasn't changed from the first
No.
time.
I understand that. But because that board, with all the various questions and comments, and working with the architect, he would like it 1,000 square feet, because this is what you need for the master suite, and got it down to 800, or 810, and that's where it is. So I think this is, it answers the question that we were posing. Let's say he brings it down and knocks 2 feet off of the main dimensions, and we're now down to 9%. Is that going to be any better? And the answer to that, I think, is no.
No, I don't agree with that.
No,
We
you
don't
don't.
know what the answer to that would be.
Well, I think he just said that.
I think the answer to what the board might approve, it would be different.
But I think Kathy's point is, what's the difference between 9 and 12, other than 3 points? 3 percentage points.
I don't think Kathy was trying to say what's the difference between 9 and 12. Kathy was simply saying, we can't have a limit. There is no limit, and you have to look at it individually. And I think part of the thing is that the board has continually expressed concern over the bulk, and each time the petition has come back, the bulk has not changed. And I think that is, and while everyone has said, you know, we like this design a whole lot better, it seems to help, it's still a major concern.
I'm willing to eat a little crow on the fact that the bulk has stayed the same, because I guess I'm seeing myself as somewhat of an aesthetic steward to the community, and I like the building better with the addition than without. So I think I'm going to just make a decision that I will support this petition.
That's what I was gonna say. I mean, you can have a 12.8% overage for the poor design, or you could have it with a good design. I think everybody, well, most of the people on the board, I think, are comfortable with the design. It's just the size of it.
I am definitely comfortable with the design. I think perhaps a slight tweak to the front facade, and I would be comfortable with it. I don't want to be just a robot here saying, no, it's over bulk. No, it's over bulk. No. I really would have appreciated some nod to the fact that we expressed, you know, it was too big, and there wasn't any. And I understand that it's not as simple as waving a wand here. You do have some square footage here that you want certain elements, so it's difficult. But you know, that's why I asked, what would we be comfortable with? Is it 8? Is it 9%? And you know,
I think an effort would have been a comfort
I
level.
know, but I'm kind of almost with John now. So an effort. I mean, I don't think anyone has to bow to us and says, hey, we need an effort here. It really is step back. If this was the original petition, again, with this kind of thing, absent this history, that's another way to look at it. And you know, I think that given the homeowners around him and the homeowners association and the history of the bulk ordinance there in relation to him originally planning this, I think that sways a little bit as well. So I'm kind of like John here. I think I would eat a little crow here and support this in that I think it's appropriate for the neighborhood to do this bulk variance now.
Mr. Smith, do you have a comment, please?
I was just going to say that we could have come in with a bigger plan, and the extraction of the square footage could have occurred here. And then it would have demonstrated effort on our part, and we didn't. With staff, we worked it down and ground it down and ground it down, so we came with what we thought we could do. So please don't say it's not, you know, it's a lack of effort. We have really tried to push this thing down, to pull it down. We knew how serious it was and how serious you were, and we did our very best. So it wasn't that we didn't hear.
No, I was referring to the first time it came before the board. It hadn't been reduced since then, and that
Right.
was the reference.
It was
Correct.
reduced in meetings with staff before it came to the board the first time.
But specifically what I was referring to was, since it has come before the board, and the board has made comments regarding the bulk, it has not been reduced each time it has come back to the board.
Right, and my
Okay,
comment is
thank
we
you.
had already been
Thank you.
forced into a reduction before we
you.
got here. That if we should only do it here, we could always come in with a bigger proposal and you could extract it, which is I'm not thinking what you would want to do.
Thank you, sir. Okay, have we worked our discussion through well enough? Would we like to take it to a vote?
I think we should.
Okay, do I hear a motion regarding this petition?
I'll make a motion that we approve the master bedroom addition as it's presented to us at 835 Holden Court, and I recommend that we approve the plans with staff requests of whatever we have in there. I don't think they have a whole lot recommendations yet, mostly with the landscaping.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Nay. So I believe we have 4 in favor, 2 opposed.
Right.
So the petition passes. Congratulations, thank you. We appreciate your petition, and it, well, no. Sets for some good discussion amongst us. Thank you, sir. Congratulations. The next item on the agenda is a new petition, a request for approval of a new 4-car garage addition and alterations to the existing residence at 855 South Ridge Road. The owner is Henry Adamson. Representative is Louis Nathanshon, excuse me, sir. Do we have any conflicts of interest or ex parte contacts amongst the board? Hearing none. Can continue.
I prepared a few simple exhibits, which are basically a rehash of what I had handed in, and then I read the staff report and realized that they had summarized things probably much more eloquently than I am able to, and
They're good at it.
seem to understand exactly what our intentions are. So I thought maybe I ought to keep my mouth shut and go with the flow. There are a couple things I would just like to add. You know, the garage is on the back of his house, and there's a very narrow sight line from Ridge. There's this fence, which you've all been there, I'm sure, and know that it limits the view, and there you can't see much from the other side. There's a large garage with a window on the second floor, which on the south, which looks over that, but nobody lives up on the second floor of that garage. And in terms of bulk, that's a more imposing mass, more imposing structure than the garage we're proposing. So I think we're appropriate in that regard. We took our cue from the existing building. We're going to use the same materials, bevel siding on the end and back. There's butt siding on the front, which so we'll do the same thing. We wanted to evoke a sense of the kind of wooden outbuilding that's popular in England, and I have made. What the heck did I do with them? I had made a copy of a couple pages of ads from an English classic car magazine to show you what feeling we're trying to evoke, and that explains why we want to do the large doors. This is good for somebody who's basically analog, not digital. So you can see the kind of buildings that are being sold in England for stables and garages and general storage. Here's another. And I don't know how clearly you can see it, but again, it's the same sort of feel that we're trying to achieve. And the one drawing which showed the two small doors, I think, looks very much like a four-car garage, and the large door looks much more like this sort of thing. So with that, I hope you follow the recommendation of staff. In terms of the second phase, when we, hopefully we will get to it, and when we do, we're going to leave the stable doors intact, except we'll remove a panel and leave the frame, and we will we'll put glass in there with mullions in this portion, and some of the doors will be operable, some will probably be fixed, and the other windows. Frankly, I'd like to try and save them, but my client doesn't share my enthusiasm. So we will put new windows in which look very much like what's there. Some of them are beyond help because the horses have eaten the sash. But with regard to addressing the issue of construction. There will not be a problem with drainage. There's wonderful natural drainage to the center of his lot and away from the neighbors. I don't envision any significant pieces of construction equipment. We're just going to dig a footing, a spread footing, and store the dirt for backfilling, and maybe we'll have to get rid of a little of it, but probably not very much. So it's not going to be any large pieces of equipment, and there is a gravel driveway now that can be used, so the construction equipment could be on his property. There's no need to leave it on Ridge, which is a dicey situation, you know, at best. If there's anything else I can answer, I'd be happy to.
Thank you. We'll now have staff present their report on this.
Thank you, Chairman Vignocchi. The existing house has a pretty unique character on Ridge Road. In the 1930s, we believe that's the era that it was built as a stable and groom's cottage for a larger estate in the area. The stable area was sort of converted into part of the house in the 1970s, so there's been some renovation to the structure, but it still does retain its rustic character from the 1930s. As it exists today, there is no garage on the property. The petitioner is proposing to construct a four-car garage to the rear of the structure with an additional viewing area balcony above, so it's like a 1.5-story structure. The addition is designed with compatible materials and in a manner that is functional given the proximity of the existing structure to the property line. It is pushed back from the face of the existing structure to allow for a turning radius. There is a drawing in your packet showing an alternative that the petitioner explored of using more carriage-style doors where there's single doors. And really the petition that's being brought forward is the use of 2 double doors in order to be functional for the petitioner as well as be consistent with the character that the petitioner presented this evening. The project does comply with building scale requirements and setback requirements. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. I think the petitioner addressed some of the comments with respect to the conditions of approval for the use of simulated divided lights for the second phase of the project, where they are modifying some of the original stable doors to have glazing to allow light into the interior space.
Thank you. We will now take it to the board for questions of staff or the petitioner.
I have a question for the petitioner. The existing use of the stable is is now part of the house, am I correct?
Functions as a basement.
Pardon? It functions?
Functions at the moment as a basement, it's full of stuff.
I see, I see.
Mr. Nathan, would you please speak to the microphone? Thank you.
In fact, part of the house, but it's probably as suitable for horses as it is for people.
Ah,
Because, and it's essentially storage.
Okay.
You know, it would be nice to have a floor that were appropriate for people and not for horses.
is the plan to,
Well,
in
the
the
pla-
future, modify that?
Well, the plan is to make it a little more habitable.
I see, okay, all right.
And, you know, there are some bits in there that no longer necessary because there are no, you don't need the stalls and you don't need to hold them up, so, and, but it will become usable hopefully for more than storage. It will
Okay.
become living space.
And the final design would be the two double doors, as staff has mentioned.
Yeah,
And
that
the first
would-
drawing shows it could be
What-
4 singles or...
Well, we explored that at the
Yeah.
suggestion of staff, and it wasn't my intention initially to do that. As I say, I wanted to evoke the
Okay.
feeling of those English wooden buildings, but, so, and I think it illustrates that it works better with
Mm-hmm.
one large door.
Okay, you've answered my questions, thank you.
I've got a couple questions, you might want to stay there. The fence along the south side of the property, is that the property owner's fence or the people to the south?
Henry, is that your fence?
Mrs. Eklund.
The property to the south.
Okay. And you say you're going to match the existing kind of character slash, you know, wood of the existing structure. That existing structure, I'll be honest, it looks a little beat up. I mean, is it structurally sound? Are you going to be able to?
Yeah,
mean,
it's not going to fall down. I mean, there's some rotten siding on the north side of it, but that you can replace. And
Are you going to replace the signs in the existing structure?
Just where it needs to be replaced. And, you know, and then we can match the siding. And there's several different kinds of siding on the existing house. Adjacent to the stable doors, it's butted. And, you know, on the side and the back, it's lapped. So we will follow that guideline, and it'll be butted adjacent to the garage doors and lapped on the end and on the back. But you know, we are not interested in making the whole place look new. We're, you know, I would, you know, we simply want to try and keep it in character what
You like the rest of it, sure.
exists.
Okay, thank you.
What's the distance from the garage to the property line or fence?
From the garage to the fence, all right, I think we're around 24 feet. I mean, it steps back a little bit, but we're certainly going to, you know, be beyond the 20-foot side yard setback there.
And your concern for doing the individual single-car garage doors is because of that turning radius?
Well, there are two reasons. That's the practical reason. Aesthetically, I don't think it works very well. It turns that structure into essentially a 4-car garage when I would like it to look more like a, you know, like a barn or a, you know, an outbuilding.
And the, on those 2-car garage doors, you have these 45-degree angle clips to
Right.
either side. Is that something that occurs elsewhere on the
No,
existing
no, it
property at all?
doesn't, but it's a common theme in, it was hard to, I think, to see these things, but maybe if I mean, this is typically the,
You can put them on the projector, maybe I can read them off of there.
everything is sort of
Okay.
difficult to read.
Mr. Nathan, could you please be sure to speak into the microphone? I'm sorry. Thank you.
Okay,
Okay, and
as
then-
I say, it doesn't seem to project things very clearly.
Okay. No, I understand
But
what,
you can, if you'd like to have a closer look,
Okay.
you can see. So that, I think,
Would you like to see those, John? Do you want to have those passed around?
I
Okay.
think it's
Okay.
probably not that critical. And then the windows, the narrow 12 by 3 foot, or 1 foot by 3 foot windows, what inspired that?
well, I wanted to
long
have a
narrow?
little bit of articulation on the upper part, and it's typically in older buildings, there was a lot less glass, and it also provides a little bit of natural light in that upper area, but I don't think you want a whole lot of natural light when you have old cars. So.
Do those windows occur anywhere else on the existing house, or is that just something that's?
No, it just seemed to me appropriate for the, you know, because it also tends to break up the mass a little bit.
Would you, on your elevation, on the stable building, you've got these series of doors, and then on the one side that's closest to your addition, there is a single window there that's existing.
Right.
It looks to be about a 2.5 foot by 2.5 foot square window.
That'll remain,
That's
window.
existing?
Yeah.
Would you consider using that window as a design precedent for windows above the garage addition? Seems appropriate to me to use some of the elements of the existing house to select as a design theme for the addition.
Well, I don't think it would frankly look as good, and I mean, if we're obliged to do it, I suppose we do it, but my preference would be not to do it.
Okay.
And I think it would alter the character. And it is supposed to be something of an outbuilding as opposed to a continuation of the existing structure. And there are, the current structure has two distinct elements. It was the groom's cottage and then the stable area. And I think my intention was to append a piece that was subservient to the existing structure. I mean, it seemed to me the Department of Interior guidelines suggest that you minimize what you add, and having done a bunch of historic buildings over the years, I'm used to kind of doing that, and so I didn't really want to make it another chunk of the same thing. I wanted to make it basically an outbuilding.
Okay, and then my last question is, would you be opposed, or is there anything restricting this garage from being pushed further to the north and letting that 24-foot turning space driveway maybe go to 34 or something like that?
Well, I don't know if we'd want to go to 34 because the grade falls away behind it. I mean, we might want to push it a little more just to make it.
I think that would be helpful
make it easier to
functioning
get in and out. I mean, we are frankly taking advantage of an existing driveway now, and you know, we're minimizing impervious surface because much of the garage is over the existing driveway. But I've actually thought about maybe pushing it back a little bit, so it's something that I think we would address and very possibly do. But I think we have to kind of deal with the grade change as it falls away.
And how far does it fall off?
Well, I mean, just the farther you go to the north and to the east, the more it falls away.
Is
So.
it, 1 foot, 2 foot?
Well, you know, it might be as much as a couple feet, but, you know.
Okay.
And I suspect, you know, we're going to have to step the footing too to
Yeah.
deal
Okay.
with it. But I think it's a thought I've had, and therefore I think it's a clever idea. So.
We share that idea.
Okay.
Question on the east elevation, is there's a window on that elevation as well?
I gotta look at the east elevation. I think I just had this is the back of the garage, right? This is the elevation farthest from the street. That, yeah. I had a door there, but I didn't have a window. That's an elevation that's going to be a long way from anything anybody's going to be able to see. And I think that given the fact that he's going to be having some vintage cars in there, you don't necessarily want to have light or, in some cases, even access. You can avoid it.
That elevation will just...
It's just going to be, it's going to be...
No doors, no windows.
Well, there's one little door. There's one door. There's got to be a people door there, but, yeah. And I should give you something that Henry gave to me. Did I? He has. Was given this by the neighbor to the north.
First floor folks, appropriate, because that's kind of...
Looks great, no issues. It's signed at David. Give you his name, address, and cell phone. We're a little late in having this.
Okay, we can submit that to staff. Thank you. Any further questions? No? Okay. Is there anyone from the public who would care to speak regarding this petition? Hearing none. Does the petitioner have any final comments before we take it to discussion?
I hope you approve it.
Thank you. Any final questions? Great, then we will take it to discussion amongst the board.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Comments? Steuart?
Well, I envy him. He's got 4 old cars. I only have one. No, I like it, and the fact that it gives him access from his home through his basement area where he keeps his stuff into the garage to look at his cars and work on his cars. I think that's nice. I think the plan that it would be of the same materials and the existing stable would be improved where needed, and probably given a whole paint job in time, I think is good. Its exposure to Ridge Road is minimal. It all runs back front to rear, and I don't think affects any neighbors. It's a huge lot, so I like it.
Okay. Any further comments?
I mean, I think it's a simple utilitarian addition to the stable. I did think John's comments about the windows was interesting, and I thought also appropriate to try to tie it in somewhat with, some of the existing design elements on the house. So, and I also agreed with John's comment about possibly pushing the addition up a little bit more so we'd have a better turning radius into the garage.
Yeah, the reason I asked about the fence is that would be a very big massing along that south exposure of the neighbor there. Now, they do have a garage right there that, one garage right next to another, but you would be able to have a sight line towards that addition, and the fact that you have just two doors, it's a lot of massing, I think, to the southern exposure, but in general, I'm fine. I think if you push it back a little bit, that would maybe help that massing as well a little bit.
Okay.
So I can support it.
I think it could be moved back a little bit. I think 24 feet is a little bit tight to maneuver cars in and out of there. And I did have the same concerns about those windows. They don't really appear to relate to anything on the rest of the house. So I can agree with those comments.
I think there's a loft up there, and it's to get some natural light.
I think it'd be nice to have light in there,
Yeah.
I don't know that those windows, don't appear anywhere else, and they don't really relate to the other part of the house, so maybe a different window or a window of a different size might be more appropriate, I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, I'm always taken by this house when I drive down Telegraph and, or Ridge Road, excuse me. You know, the colors kind of catch my attention, and then the building itself is unusual to most of what Lake Forest we have, but you know, this certainly has a design relevance that I'd like to try to make sure gets enhanced with this addition. I think I agree it's behind, you know, the impact to the street is almost non-existent. You know, there's not a bulk issue, there's not a setback issue, so I don't, you know, feel I should stand in the way of, unlike the other one that had the bulk issue. I think we're good to go there, but my issues are with those narrow windows, and even the placement of them I find a little awkward. I'd rather see, you know, 4 larger windows which relate to the existing window that's down on the first floor, have a similar matching window occurring in a pattern of 4 and not so close to the corners. And you know, other than that, I think the utilitarian aspects of this become the beauty and the aesthetics that make it a successful design. So, and of course, I agree with my own comments about pushing the building back a little bit further. I've always found that you know, 25 feet is a minimum. 30 is okay, 32 doable, 34 wonderful. So I'll leave that up to the petitioner to use those categories when he reconsiders where the placement of that is. But I would suggest in excess of 30 would be where I would start from.
I certainly will.
Okay.
We'll look at that, and I suspect it will. In fact, I do have one photograph showing the house to the south, which is at the far south.
Mr. Nathan, if you please come to the microphone to speak. Thank you so.
I think any concern about a view from the house to the south to this addition, or to much of Henry's house, is you can't see much there, but you can. The house is set way back. It's probably 150 feet from this addition, and there's the row of trees and the fence. So I don't think there would be much of any view of it from the house, but only from that garage, which is near the property line.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm hearing general approval of this with 2 additional comments, one relating to the windows, relating to the existing structure and the placement of, and the second one possibly moving the addition further back, or actually that would be to the north, correct? Yes.
Correct.
So based on those 2 additional items that we would ask the petitioner to have consideration of, do I hear a motion?
What are your ideas, John?
I'll move to approve based on the board's comments for a related window to the existing on the first floor in a pattern of 4, and a garage that is pushed further to the north, a minimum to 30 feet. Otherwise, approve as submitted.
I'll second. Were you looking for a
Any
second?
discussion?
I think
Any
we
concern
need to
over
make sure that the normal
Any concern over
cap.
that distance of the 30 feet? We didn't know what the grade was, that was my concern.
Yeah, they'll have to deal with that, but we didn't talk about construction staging, because, I mean, there's a tight driveway that gets through there, and I don't know to what extent we're going to have multiple trades clogging up Ridge Road at all, but that's
The
usually
recommendations include submitting a
This-
plan for construction staging.
the normal staff conditions for fencing and tree preservation and construction staging plan.
Excuse me, does the city forester recommend the location of the tree fencing?
Yes.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Congratulations. Thank you for your time. Are we good? Are we good? I think this one will be fine. No? Does anyone need a break? Are we good? Oh, you're on here. Never mind. You don't need one, you've got one. The next item on the agenda is a new petition, a request for approval of a new single-family dwelling on a vacant lot located at the corner of Woodlawn Avenue and Washington Road. Owners and representatives are Bryant and Lisa Jensen. I'm sorry, Liza Jessen. Is it Jessen or Jensen? Jessen, thank you. I'm sorry. Do we have any members of the board who have any conflicts of interest or ex parte contacts?
My company is involved with this petition, so I'd like to recuse myself from this discussion.
Thank you. Welcome. Thank you. You may begin.
Yes, thank you very much. On behalf of myself, I'd like to introduce myself first. Brian Jessen, homeowner. I have with me my wife Liza and our architect Bob Gabelhoff. We come before the board this evening to request approval for the construction of our new home at 131 Washington. We worked extensively with Megan on the approval or the design parameters of this project. As stated in the documents that we've submitted, this project was up for construction in 2007, similar design, and we have refined it and brought it back for approval. And hopefully we will have your approval this evening after review. Thank you. The home that we have presented here is a Dutch colonial style, 3 bedrooms, 3.5 baths with a detached garage. Based on our designs, we have fit within the code requirements for bulk ordinance, square footage, the building box, if you will. We're well within that parameter. What you're looking at here is the south elevation of the property. This is the side of the house that faces Woodlawn. Being on a corner lot, we are sensitive to both elevations, the front of the house and the Woodlawn side. The garage also faces Woodlawn, and it has a south elevation as well. This is the front, I'm sorry, this is the back elevation of the house, which faces the east. The garage area between the house, I'm sorry, the courtyard area between the house and the garage, we're intending to install a fence to make it a somewhat of a private courtyard area. That was illustrated on the drawings that we had submitted. The elevation next is the north elevation. This elevation faces an open parcel of land. There's a lot that is empty next to us that's wooded. It's the same size as our lot, 45 feet wide by 170 deep. So we don't have a house directly next to our home to the north, so it's an open space, and then we've got the open space towards Woodlawn side as well. And you're looking at the garage elevation. One of the comments on the board, the staff's review was about the dormer that's on the second floor. We've considered reducing that in size and bringing it down the roof line, or perhaps eliminating it altogether, and that's open to discussion as well. This elevation is the north elevation. We've placed windows on the north elevation to allow light in, as well as the west elevation that would face this inner courtyard area that we're trying to create. We purposely left windows off the east elevation because that faces the neighbor's house, and it's a driveway that's very, very close to the property lines. So we didn't feel that there was a need to have windows on that elevation looking into the driveway area of the house next to us. The landscape drawing that's here is our first draft of landscaping. There were a couple of comments about the landscaping and the trees on the property. To the elevation on Woodlawn, there's an area of the home that has a larger open space between windows, and our intention is to put some larger, more mature landscape trees along that area to address that issue, as well as the front sidewalk that exits out onto Washington. That pattern, that shape will be addressed as a landscape is developed. I met with the city arborist, and he would like to see that curve around a couple of large trees that we have that will be remaining. So we're definitely open to changing that design to work with the mature landscaping, mature trees that we have on the property. Here we have a streetscape drawing. One of the concerns that was noted was our elevation of the house. We are within our maximum height restriction, so we're actually under that. And in comparison to the homes around, on the Washington elevation, you have the open parcel next to us, and then you have the smaller home to the north. That's a 1.5 story type home with a small space up in the attic for, as you can see in the elevation. The home to the south, we are slightly taller than that house, but just slightly. On the Woodlawn elevation, if you mirror up the height between our new home and the existing home, they are the same elevations. So we think we're okay there. If you have any questions or comments?
Thank you. We'll have staff present their report at this time.
Thank you, Chairman. As was noted by the petitioner, this is a corner lot. It fronts on Woodlawn as well as Washington. There are actually 2 vacant lots on this corner. Both are developable. The proposed new single-family dwelling is on the one closest to the street, so it's on the immediate corner. As with all petitions, the board is looking at this with respect to the standards. And in a neighborhood such as this, where the homes are very close together, the lots are narrow, new construction is visible from the street. New construction can either be very noticeable or it can appear to be seamless as if the house was always there. And I think the standards in the ordinance give the board the framework in order to review projects to make sure that projects are seamless and that the architecture is compatible along the street from a streetscape standpoint. Staff is recommending approval of this petition. There are some comments in the staff report just to give the board some framework of comments to really make sure that we understand the details and that the nuances are done in a manner of more traditional detailing. Things like making sure that there's a visual support column where things cantilever, that the proportion of the eaves to the roof shape are correct. subtle details of the dormer window to make sure it's scaled appropriately for the neighborhood and for the garage structure. So those refinements are noted in the staff report, and we're asking for some board input and discussion on those items. But we are recommending approval of the project. Over the past year or so, several hazardous trees have been removed from the property. It is still a wooded area along the streetscape here. And the petitioners have worked closely with our city arborist, as was noted by the petitioner, to work around some of the mature trees, particularly on the corner with Woodline and Washington. So there are several conditions of approval relating to the tree preservation. As this project begins to take shape, in order to improve the health of the mature oaks on that corner, we did include a condition that considers removing some of the smaller trees in that corner just to give relief to the oak. But I think we really want to see how the construction impacts the streetscape before authorizing approval of any removals on that corner. It is important, as the board knows, how mature landscaping does allow new construction to settle into a streetscape and really give it a sense of scale for the neighborhood. So I'd be happy to go over any of the conditions of approval or answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Megan. This time we'll take it to the board for questions to the staff or petitioner.
I have a question for staff. All of the distances from the lot lines, the north lot line and the south lot line and the east lot line are all within specifications.
Correct. This project complies with zoning setback requirements as well as building scale requirements.
And I guess a question then I have for the petitioner, you've located the house, you've got, looks like 16 feet from, it would be Woodlawn Avenue, and then from the north lot line, you're 6 feet. And I guess you're looking for more of an expanse where people walk by, rather than right in the middle of the lot, north and south. And then, if and when something is built on the lot north to you, they would have another 6.5 feet, so you'd have 12.5 feet or 13 feet between homes.
That is correct.
You're thinking on that, okay. All right, okay. Thank you.
Question for staff on the quality of trees that are there. I've been out there that site. I know that those maples are not they're more of a weed variety of maple than a cultivated type variety. But the oak tree, it appears there's one up by the street. Is that something that has been tagged with any kind of quality whatsoever?
The oak tree is probably the highest quality tree on the property. And that is in particular, the tree that the conditions of approval are referring to at the southwest corner of the lot. Some of the maples in that area, if they were to be removed, could potentially improve the quality of growing conditions for that oak. So the arborist is willing to accept some additional removal in order to help those more mature trees thrive.
Do we know where the services, the sewer, water, electric, and what have you come from? Are they off of Washington or are they off of Woodlawn?
We can certainly confirm this, but I do believe the services are off of Washington.
I can speak to that. The city engineer and I have had conversation, as well as we've had Julie on site to locate underground utilities. Both water and electric are available, or excuse me, water and sewer are available on both Woodlawn and Washington.
Okay. With
electric coming off the northwest corner of Woodlawn. So the underground, the electric is intended to be underground to the home, to the front corner of the property.
I think it's northwest Washington, northwest of Washington.
Yeah,
Is that the electric?
It'd be the northwest corner of the property is where the electric is.
All right, but in particular, sewer and water can come off of Woodlawn?
And or Washington.
Either one.
Okay, I think I'm going to recommend that they come off of Woodland, because I think anything that comes into contact with the roots of that tree, like a sewer or a water, is
Yes.
going to have a serious impact.
And Board Member Clair, let me just comment that the area where a new construction like this attaches to city services really depends on capacity and where there's available storm sewers and the like. So that's really something that our engineers look at carefully and make a determination based on that, so as not to impact the neighborhood.
One of the points that the city engineer and I spoke on was that he would like to see it come off of Woodlawn, because Washington is a newly paved blacktop road, and the destruction that causes would be better served if it came off of Woodlawn.
I have a question on this letter. Is this a point where we can talk about this letter that came from a neighbor?
Definitely, and my apologies, I forgot to mention that. We did receive some correspondence after the packets went out to the board, and it has been placed at your table. It is from the neighbor directly to the north, owner of the vacant lot as well as the house.
I don't quite understand her question. Looking at the plot plan, there's a drafting error on there. They're showing that the front porch is 9 feet from the north lot line. They're also bringing 6'6" down to that same porch, and that should be, I think, the edge of the house, but that's neither here nor there. But I don't see anything. She's talking about something very close to the northwest corner, which is up here, and there's nothing there because, you know, they're 48.5 feet to that front porch. I don't quite. Do you know any more about what she's talking about than this letter?
I do. I did have a conversation with this resident after they submitted this email. There was some confusion based on some dimension lines. They thought there may have been a sidewalk there. They wanted, for the record, just to express some concern that the house be sited within required setbacks and that no variances are asked.
And you've confirmed that it is?
That is correct.
So this letter, there's nothing in this letter that we have to worry about? Okay, thank you.
Questions? Ooh, a sign. Okay, I don't hear any further questions from the board. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak regarding this petition? Seeing none, does the petitioner have any final comments?
Other than we hope that this meets with your approval and we can come in very soon for a building permit.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Any further questions from the board? No? Okay. You may be seated. We'll take it to discussion amongst the board then. Thank you.
Thank you.
I recall we did look at this lot some time ago.
Yes.
With a different architect.
Yes.
My recollection is, and as the petitioner had said, it was similar design, a Dutch colonial design to fit into the neighborhood, to look as if it were had been there since the 20s or 30s, as Megan was suggesting. So, I think it's a long, narrow house, but it's a long, narrow lot.
Any further comments?
I was just going to say, I think staff made quite a few recommendations. They seem to make a lot of sense, all of them, so I don't know how we address those.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Charlie. Those are excellent comments in the staff report because it's really getting at the gist that the house is going to be perceived as top-heavy with the eaves, you know, with that large of a projection of the eaves, and with the second floor overhanging the first floor at the front of the house, and even the side dormers are projecting past the first floor line. So I think taking into account staff's recommendation and mitigating, you know, that top heaviness is something that I think the board and I would, you know, look for. And eliminating or reduce, I think eliminating the dormer over the garage would simplify the garage. And
Yes.
that dormer is definitely out of proportion. And the blank wall with the stairwell.
Yes. And the overall height was noted, it could come down a little bit to be a little more in touch with the rest of the neighborhood as well. So just, I don't know if you want to attack those individually or.
Well, I don't have a problem, we could. I don't have a problem with the overall height. I think the other recommendations are worthy of consideration. And I believe the petitioner had commented that they were willing to relook at all those recommendations. Is that correct?
I think we'd kind of like to go through, can we go through them and just, we have a little bit of give and take. Definitely we want to work with you, and we're hoping that you'll be able to work with us as well. Do you mind if we go through the ones that are relevant that we're talking about?
Yeah, I think that's fair. Are we okay with that at this juncture?
It may be appropriate for the board to have a discussion on the various items,
okay.
and then potentially appoint a subcommittee to review with the petitioner the different aspects.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. I think we'll finish that here at our discussion level, and then we'll.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree that the eave overhangs on the second floor are excessive, and I don't know if somebody mentioned top-heavy, but what I'm concerned about too is I believe this is suggesting that we have aluminum underneath those eaves. Is that a correct statement?
Which eaves are you talking about?
Well, I'm looking at fascia soffits and rake boards. Soffits I'm assuming mean the underside of the eave overhang. Is that going to be aluminum?
Yes, those
Vented
are aluminum overhangs.
Okay. That heightens my concern on the
Exactly.
height, the overhangs. And I just think that the beauty of the Dutch Colonial, and by the way, I like the design. I always liked the Dutch Colonial. I think we need to see more of them, but the beauty of the Dutch Colonial is you get an opportunity to adjust that secondary pitch. And I think 10 and 12, considering it's a two-story in a narrow building, the higher you put the pitch and the steeper it will appear from the street level. So as much as we all might look at this and say, wow, that looks like it's got the right pitch, the reality of it is when you're down at the little stick figures plane of sight, it's going to really look steep up there. And I don't think that's, appropriate necessarily for the Dutch Colonial, because it usually tends to have a little less of a pitch on that secondary roof line. But also in these narrow lots and suggesting that we are as tall as some other things leads me to believe that the next empty lot to the north is also going to want to be as tall as everything else. And then now that's when we've created a problem for the next house that isn't to the north. And I'd like to see that reduced slightly. And I think then the chimney that looks a little bit excessive in its beef and a little less detailed than I'd like to see it. It just simply has a cap and that's the end of it. But I think there's an opportunity there, since this style does have some detailing applied, that I think the chimney is a place to apply it. I don't necessarily have a problem with the window locations and their the periods of empty wall versus window portion. I think that can be if there is a particular issue, it might come up in a subcommittee. We do have a couple skylights on this house, but I think it's to the other side that might not necessarily have an appearance to the street that I'd be too concerned over. I like the direction. I think it would be in your best interest to accept a subcommittee of some of the board members here to do some little tweaking. You know, we don't want to get too involved in it here, because then we're designing, you know, with the board in real time, and it's just not a good use of anybody's time. But a subcommittee meeting of maybe once or twice would get this thing really to someplace where I think we could all be very happy with it.
I think I'd like to just make a quick comment about the 2-foot overhangs. We do have a photo of a home that's actually down the street on Washington, which is this home here that has actually a 2-foot overhang, if not a little bit more. Now, in the neighborhood, the overhangs really vary from anywhere from a foot to 2 feet. So the house that's actually kitty corner from us and across the street on Woodlawn is 2 feet. A couple of the others are 18 inches. I think we are a little bit flexible, but in terms of the Dutch colonial and the style of the house, if we reduce it too much, we turn into a mansard roof, and that's not really architecturally pleasing to this neighborhood. So, like I said, we're a little bit flexible, but we are very much dictated by the pitch of the roof and so on. So, like I said, we want to work with you, but we're hoping that you can acknowledge our design and, you know, take that into account. So.
Thank you. Any further discussion regarding these items? Do we want to, does anyone have any additional comments regarding these items? I commented earlier, I don't have an issue with the height.
If something meets the ordinance, you know, setbacks and bulks and heights and all that, I'm you know, I have no problems suggesting otherwise, unless it's in the neighborhood of small, tight little lots where now, you know, some of the neighboring properties will start to dictate that the height requirement isn't quite what how the code was written to really address existing contextual fits and things. So I guess I'm saying I'm not okay with the height, because I know this neighborhood, and as much as I can be shown precedent that something across the street or something down the street is taller or as high, I'd like to see the smaller houses taken into consideration and not go all the way up to the bigger houses as my point to as my precedent. I'd like somebody one day come in and say, you know, there's a little house next to me and that's what I want to do. Anyhow, I think we're really, really, really close.
Yeah, I think though that, you know, their ceiling heights are only 9 foot on the first floor and then come down on the second floor. So I think they're, you know, considerate of that. So I hate, for being a narrow house, it's nicer to have that little bit higher ceiling.
Yeah, I think they raised they're 3.5 feet above grade is one way that it could
Not
perhaps.
Quite.
So I agree with John. I think the height is a little too much, and I think the chimney exacerbates that, because the chimney is a very tall chimney as well.
All right. I think we have,
Can I address that last comment about the height of the house?
yes.
Okay. We had raised the house to allow lights, or windows rather, to be installed on the basement level to let light go in. And reducing the height of the house would also adjust the ceiling heights, as you had indicated. So we really hope that we can stay consistent with what we've submitted, knowing that the neighbor to our east has the same elevation height-wise as our house. It's a 2-story home that's been there for many years. The homes that are directly across the street on the Woodlawn, or excuse me, Washington side, are also 2-story homes that are as tall as our home. The one house that is shorter is the house that's to the north, which is the 1.5-story, if we wanted to go to the streetscape. So to have that theory that we're the biggest house or we're bigger than, you know, others.
No, but I think you have a misconception of what we're suggesting too. That we're not suggesting that you make a floor smaller or head height or living space adjustments for height, but probably someplace in the attic that has a more, I think, appropriate pitch, and would just reduce the height slightly to not take it all the way up to the maximum. So I don't think there'd be any negative impact to you folks. We're just looking at some aesthetic refinements that, try to keep it under control a little bit.
Very well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is that right? Is that a correct statement?
Then I think what I'm hearing here is we have some suggestions from staff. I think board has some opinion on some possible refinements that could help it, and it sounds like the petitioner is willing to work on that. So I think this is a good instance for possibly a subcommittee, as staff had recommended, to work directly, with the architect and the petitioner to come up with a couple of those refinements that might produce a better product. That's all. Okay. So based upon that, do I hear a petition? Or hear a motion for this?
We're suggesting a continuance with a subcommittee form, and then bring this back to another meeting after some refinements, but between the petitioner and the subcommittee. Is that correct?
Or do you have the subcommittee just make the decision and move on?
We can do either.
What would you recommend, Kathy? Your staff has had some input on this project, I'm sure.
It may be that the quickest way to resolve this is to have a subcommittee and bring it back before you on a consent agenda, so that everyone's aware and.
Right. Yeah, I'm comfortable with that. Just bringing it back on a consent versus continuing.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Well, it's not a continuance or
a continuance.
I mean, they would bring it back and we would discuss it again.
We would continue it to, exactly.
And so it is a continuance with a subcommittee and bringing it back with a subcommittee's recommendation to do it without submitting new plans. Am I correct?
After the subcommittee meets with the petitioner, they would submit revised plans, and we could take it before the board on a consent agenda with no discussion or presentation by the petitioner unless requested by the board or a member of the public.
So
it would allow the board to review the elevations one more time to give final approval.
Okay.
And what is the timeline for that, Megan?
We can work with you and your design team to get revised drawings and the board together to meet.
But we don't have to wait till the next board meeting.
You would.
Yeah.
Yes, you would.
It would have to for approval, but it wouldn't have to have the further discussion at the board level at that point. You could work to make the changes that we're discussing now so that it comes before us and the decisions have basically been made and you've finalized it, and then we can just agree to vote on it at that point.
So would that put us on the next month's agenda?
That'll put you into, this is May, that'll put you into the June meeting.
So we can't receive approval to proceed until June, based on our discussion we're having now, is that correct?
I think the timeline would really be in your hands. I think we'd want to have you prepare some responses to the comments you've heard. We could pull a subcommittee together quickly, and yes, then we could put you back on the June agenda and move it forward at that time. But you'd be in control of that timing, depending on how quickly you can bring in some revised plans and respond to any further concerns.
The
height of the house.
For our situation, time is of the essence. We'd like to get this house under construction as quickly as we possibly can. Our family situation is changing, our dynamics. We're expecting twins in October this year, so we're really hoping that we can get approval sooner than later. With that being said, the timing is such that if we can resolve the issues at this meeting, it would be great, without having to come back in June and lose 30 days of the construction window.
Well, I do think, I don't know where you are in your working drawings, but what I heard is really refinements to exterior detailing. So especially if the subcommittee meeting, there's agreement, you could certainly move forward with your working drawings, because that needs to happen before you can submit for permit anyway. And we can be resolving the utility issues, so there are things that I think we can do. You could get your grading plans in. We can get those in the queue for engineering review, so we can track some of this concurrently.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is, he cannot get a permit until June. That's the fastest he's gonna get a permit.
Correct.
Approval
And-
from the board. I mean,
Approval from the
obviously,
board.
there's a,
Which you
there's
need
a
to
permit
get.
process
Yeah.
for plan
So,
review.
Right,
That's,
This isn't gonna happen until June.
But engineering plan, if engineering plans are done, they can get those in. The engineering plan review could be going on concurrently.
Right.
And that's gonna take that long anyway.
And the construction drawings typically take a while to develop
Correct.
anyways. I mean, these are design development. I mean, typically the construction drawings aren't done for a building review board meeting in its entirety.
Yeah,
There's more work to be done.
but this is not the forum for designing the project, you know, based on what we see and what we have in front of us. It's just,
We're
we're here to
always
look at what you
sensitive.
presented, and,
Right.
and if we have our issues with it and we can't approve it because we have enough people here that don't feel that it's a consistent fit with the neighborhood in that it's taller than things around it.
But it's really
you're-
not, that's the thing.
Well, it really is. I mean, I know this neighborhood quite well, and there's
But if you look
plenty
at-
of houses there that are like the one to the north of you that are much smaller. So yes, you can find precedent that's out there that's equally as tall.
But if you look at the ones across the street, you will find something
I know.
different, so.
I've
I mean,
looked at them.
Yeah.
I think that we make a lot of effort to be fair in terms of time, you know, that people come before and turnaround time. And I think what Kathy was trying to say is staff will work with you to make sure that there aren't any unnecessary delays and that you can start a lot of the process right now and it would be concurrent. It would be parallel tracks and, you know, everyone will do their best to expedite it.
Yeah, we'd really appreciate that.
Okay.
So is there a motion and a
I
vote, or are
don't think
we
we have a
just-
motion yet on the table. Would someone care to make a motion?
I move that we go to a subcommittee on this particular project and bring it back on a consent agenda as quickly as possible.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time. Good luck. This time, it's the opportunity for the public to address the board on any non-agenda items. Seeing, hearing none, correct? Next item would be any additional information from staff?
Nothing.
Nothing? Thank you, Kathy. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. I'll use it after all, since it fell off, right? Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.